Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beaver Politics. This is Breaking the Dam. Today, we're going to do a kind of an emotional check-in and see how everyone's doing, especially with the leadership race for the Liberal Party, having already picked their candidate, how we all feel about that, and what we think is going to happen going forward. Please do like, follow, and share the live. We appreciate gifts, especially if you can gift the panel. They put in a lot of emotional work. If you're interested in coming up on the panel, you just have to click on the bottom of your screen on the pink and blue people, and that will request you up. You can also let us know in the comments, and I can invite you if you don't know how to do it. Today I was thinking we'd start with maybe a check-in on how people are feeling about Mark Carney being the new Liberal leader and what we think that's going to affect us, how we think it's going to affect us. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about the ECOS poll because that has shifted quite a lot. And that is generally considered a much more right-wing poll. And we're in the lead right now. Or I shouldn't say some of us are NDP, but the Liberals are in the lead right now. Please do, again, like, follow, and share. And tapping is clapping. We really appreciate it if you can tap your screen so that we get some likes, because that really helps us get the live out there to other people. So thank you all for being here today. Hi, Treaty. If you want to come up, just ask to join. I'll keep an eye on that, get some more guests on the panel, and we'll start with Smarshy. How are you doing, Smarshy?
I have a lot of mixed emotions right now.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie.
That's okay. What's going on?
Just with everybody being like, oh, we didn't vote this prime minister in. And I've had to tell so many Canadian people, we don't vote the prime minister in like they do down in the States with the president.
Exactly.
We are literally here voting the party, and the party leader that has the most seats gets to be the next prime minister. And I've been explaining to them, and it's mind-boggling that most Canadians don't know this. And they're like, how do you know so much? I'm like, because it's called reading between the lines. It's going into political lives.
You're closer to the UK.
Right.
We're not the same kind of. We're not the same kind of.
We are parliamentary. We're not a presidentary.
We're a parliamentary democracy, not a presidentary.
Right.
We do not vote for our prime minister ever. I've never voted for a prime minister because it's not possible. You vote for your.
And if we did.
You vote for your party, and a lot of people are forgotten or too young to remember Kim Campbell. And I brought her up several times because the same thing happened in 1993 when Brian Mulroney was hugely unpopular. I hated the man, and I was a teenager during Brian Mulroney's years, and my parents were very much into politics. So I remember following him, and that man could literally talk for an hour and not answer a single question. He was unbelievable that way.
Kind of like Pierre.
Exactly. Like I used to call him a dancer. He could just dance around the question, not answer it,
right,
and then move on.
You know, I went into a live today. My mistake. I shouldn't have done it, but I went in there and they're asking me about Carney, and I said, well, they're like, how do you think that we could fix the country? I'm like, well, we get rid of the government system altogether and revamp it to make it fit everybody.
Yeah.
And this is just my opinion, right? Like me by myself.
Yeah.
And then I also said to them, I said, it would be good if they gave the, Indigenous people land back so we could help, oh, there's no climate change, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's what they're pushing in the United States. So with Trump is that it isn't real. And I don't think PP has said that exactly, but he sure hasn't said anything positive about protecting the environment. In fact, He doesn't talk about it at all, which says a lot.
And then they were trying to talk about, one guy was trying to talk about the Sahara Desert. I'm like, no, I'm talking about specifically Canada. That's all I'm doing. And so lo and behold, I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. I'm pardon my French. I'm like, I'm done. I exited out of the live and I have not gone back because it's not that they defeated me. It's the fact of the level of hypocrisy.
Oh, well, and Kim Campbell, I should mention, she stayed in power for 6 months. She did not call an immediate election. I'm almost certain Mark Carney's going to. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think he'll call one next week. But
Right, but
I think he should give himself a chance to get settled and get up and running first. So I hope he gives
yes.
himself enough time to campaign.
And I
But
mean, emotionally, I'm not doing so well, but like,
okay.
I get politics are just, all over the place. I get it.
Well,
And
and
I'm
it's
glad
really
the carbon,
uncertain.
and, and I'm glad the carbon tax is gone because now that these are extra taxes, but then I'm hearing a lot of, oh, well, now what are we going to do without that money? Well, you guys wanted it gone so damn badly.
Well,
Now it's
it
gone,
was PP's whole campaign for 2 years.
right? And
That's
now
what
what's
happened.
PP going to run? What's Polyev going to run on, right? So my thoughts today are, I'm hoping this live can bring me some peace because
Okay.
I feel like fighting someone. I really do. I feel
Oh,
like
you're
going
having a
out and
rough
picking a
one.
fight with someone.
Yeah, and it can be really hard. And I've definitely responded. Like Kim Campbell took 6 months before she called it, before an election happened. It was 6 months that we had Kim Campbell as our leader, and she lost hugely to Jean Chrétien. Like it was one of the biggest wins in Canadian political history, I believe. So she was hugely unpopular, but she didn't call an immediate election. It
Right.
was 6 months before we had the election, probably five. What is the maximum we can campaign for? Is it 52 days or something like that? So,
I don't know. I'm just new to politics again, so.
no, that's okay. And there's little details I don't remember. So Canada, how long election?
Oh, and
Hi,
while you're
ladies.
Do you happen to know?
looking,
Oh, let's
No, I
introduce
don't know that.
pause.
Am I supposed to like say
Oh,
hello
pause.
here?
You can say hello and just tell us your age. That's the only thing. And are you a lefty? Because we don't do debates here on
Yeah.
like
Well, no, I'm 40, and
okay,
I do have like a contrary, obviously, perspective, but I'm not here to debate.
okay,
I just like I'm not like I'm not
yeah,
like a rude like crazy um debater like with these types of conversations. I thought it was kind of interesting when you were talking about the executive branch, and we don't even have to talk out in a partisan way
hmm
in that regard. I think our history for the parliamentary system is fantastic,
yeah,
but I think we lost some of our like the power for the people in like the late 1800s, early 1900s when the executive did start going just with the party of majority. And I
hmm
really believe that's kind of a problem. Like I heard you talking about how that's just the way it is, but it didn't used to be
it
that
is.
way.
No, and if people like have, it's not. I think it's just frustrating when people don't understand that it's all the way that we do it in Canada. If you don't like that, then maybe talk to your MP and advocate for it to be revisited.
Yeah,
But it's not
exactly.
going to change the fact that Carney is our prime minister and that
Oh
he
yeah,
was
that's
elected, in the up and up. Like there's nothing shady about it. We've done this before. We did it with Kim Campbell. I know Carney doesn't have a seat. John Turner didn't have a seat. Like all of this is just in line with how our politics work. It's not anything unusual or
yeah. I
like there are a
mean,
lot of people or undemocratic or unconstitutional about it. It's how our government runs. So that's really my point. It's not so much that I necessarily like it. And in fact, in some ways, maybe I'd like to vote for prime minister
yeah,
directly,
right. Like
and I can't.
that's kind of my point. Like
So I get what you're
I
saying.
agree.
Yeah.
People get so angry, and I hear this too about Carney. Like, and do I want Carney in? No, I don't. Do I like that process? I hated it. But
hmm
at the same time, that's our system, and so to
Exactly.
like to scream and yell like and stuff, that's
right.
like, well, we got to change it if that's what we're gonna do.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Scooter. I don't like any of the government choices we have right now. But I don't want an angry paperboy running our country. We
Yeah.
got.
I got to be honest, like PP is very negative. Like it's the negative campaigns that just, they don't do it for me. Like, and I know
Yeah,
he needs to criticize and call people out and debate, but it's too much. It's too American, frankly.
I would agree that the perception, especially now, needs to change for the conservatives in that regard. And they've been off balance probably for about a month and a half here now, which has been disappointing from my end to watch this kind of happen. Like there's some great people in that conservative party, and like Larry Brock, I feel, or like Kelly Block, or Wes McCauley. Like they're an older crowd, they're more seasoned, and I think that that would do the conservatives actually a lot of utility by having them actually out there and speaking, because Polyev comes across like such a cocky, like arrogant little prick sometimes, you know?
Yeah. And see, we've already got people in the comments talking, I did not vote for Carbon Carney, ain't no PM. It's like, Yes, he
Oh yeah,
is.
that's too bad. Yeah.
It's just a fact. Like I'm not. This isn't an
Okay,
opinion. It is a absolute
but
fact.
okay,
Carney
but
is the
he
prime
is the
minister.
interim. He is the interim prime minister.
Yes,
He is
interim prime
there
minister.
until
We
we
want to be
have an
specific.
election.
Hmm.
He's
Uh,
there just like if something happened to Donald Trump, God forbid something happened to Donald Trump, Vance would step in as the
exactly.
interim,
Which is worse
as
for
the
me, but
as the
I
president.
think it's
Right,
a little bit worse.
but you know what I mean. Like that's how it works. If something happens to the prime minister where they step down, they need an interim in Canada. That's
so
just a
just quickly,
quickly word
I
for
want to
all.
give. Yeah, I just want to give Healing through meditation a chance to talk. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I have a question for the gentleman that said he does not like Carney. Not
Let's
only a
pause.
question, but I'm curious. I'm
Hmm.
curious. I, for one, right now, like I'm new at the political game. Let's say I got really more involved in wanting to know more when Trump was running, and I liked Kamala way better than Trump. I have not liked Trump for many, many, many years. However, what they I still don't believe that he won fair and square. But anyways,
Hmm.
so looking at the candidates we have, I'm kind of curious as to why, because I noticed some comments in the comments area where PP is a liar, he's a this, he's a that, he's a the other. To me, it sounds like they're just repeating what Pierre Poilievre is saying.
You mean
So the
Carney is
gentleman,
a liar? Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So now the gentleman that I don't know, all I can see is SC. I don't see your whole name. Can
Scooty.
I ask you
Scooty.
what? Sorry,
Scooty.
Yeah.
Scooty.
I mean,
Scooty. I'm just curious, Scooty, as
no,
to
it's fair.
why you
It's a
don't
good
like.
question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
What is it you don't like about Carney? That's a great question.
yeah, so I mean, just as a guy presenting, he's fine. He's
Mhm.
polished. He's a professional in some regard in that way. He seems to have lots of like global kind of connections and these types of things, and the experience with the banks. Like I guess you could call that good. I am concerned though that when he's asked direct questions, he obfuscates, and it drives me crazy. Like when Barton Rosemary Barton was asking him about the carbon tax, and so he goes, "Well, hold on a second. Let's take a big step back. And here's two things." And then so he reframes these questions and doesn't really answer. I find that he does like a Kamala Harris word salad, and so I don't know where he sits on anything.
But does PP
You know?
answer things? Like I'm just as a comparison, I find
Yeah, I
he
actually
runs from
I
questions,
think
and
he's quite direct. However, he does also dodge some stuff. Like
I was going to say
he
I
was,
feel. I just want to interrupt for a second, and you can tell me because I'm really curious how you feel. I feel like his questions are staged most of the time. Like they feel like questions that he knows are coming, um,
Right. But
well,
he
and it's
also
never the
says
tough
the same.
questions.
he's
No,
scripted,
but
right?
he also repeats the same things over and over and over again. I, for one, right now we have Mark Carney, we have Pierre Poilievre, and we have Jagmeet Singh, which I think he's probably going to. So those two guys, the PP and the Jagmeet, all they do is slander the other parties. The only thing
Right.
that I heard Carney say negatively about PP is that he doesn't always tell the truth. Okay. I don't even think he even called him a liar, but with the way he framed it, it was very diplomatic. Whereas these other guys are just lying. Here's what I hear: Jagmeet Singh is repeating about Mark Carney what PP has been saying about Mark Carney. That's what I hear. The two budgies, the two parrots, or whatever. Right? But at this point, who do we have? Carney is our best bet because the other
Right.
two cannot be trusted.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like,
to give
I don't think
Okay,
I'd change your mind on
let's
that.
give you a chance, Scooty. Go ahead. I will give you a chance to
Yeah,
respond.
like, and I won't try to like. I'm not going to obviously change minds like in this short conversation, but I think there is some obviously there's some truth to what both people are saying about each other.
Mhm.
I think when we look at Mr. Singh, I think he makes up a lot of stuff and he's lost his credibility. I think we could probably agree with his.
Sadly,
Yeah,
because
so
I really
I
like
mean,
Jagmeet a lot, but
I did as well. You
But
know,
the last couple of things that come out from him, like he said a bunch of lies about Carney just the other day, and that's not something I expect from him. And maybe it's
yeah.
not fair that I expect more from him, but as an NDP and just from his history, I expect more honesty.
Well, and I was going to say that, like, these politicians, they are lying, and I'll tell you, like, I watch Polyev. The one thing I've really been bothered with him about honesty on is the carbon tax. And the reason I say this is because he says axe the tax, and he blusters about that a lot, obviously. However, when the party's asked a direct question about the industry carbon tax, if they're going to get rid of that, they don't answer that.
He's
Oh.
revamping that, I believe. Go ahead,
Well, no, I'm
Smarty,
saying
if you know more than
Polyev.
me. Oh, you know, Polyev, yeah. Polyev
Yeah,
won't
I'm
answer
saying
that.
him.
He
So
just says axe the tax, yeah. That's what I mean. I
he
don't
says
like
axe the
Polyev's.
tax, and Scheer will go on Vassy and say, and I hate Scheer, by the way, but Scheer will go on Vassy and he'll say, yes, the consumer's gone. And then she'll ask directly, and he pivots around and just, it's like when he was taught, like when Scheer used to get cornered on the AB conversation and he couldn't answer it. He was doing the same thing with the consumer, or sorry, the industry carbon tax. And I don't like that. It feels like a lie. So I agree with that. Now, Mr. Carney, I think, like, you guys have seen the stuff that he's gotten fact check on here. Like, we don't have to relitigate that, I don't think.
With what?
I mean, Brookfield, him not being part of the meeting and the decision to move down to New York. I don't even know why he lied about that. Like, that's just, it was silly. His investments and the boards that he was sitting on or that he was removed from, I don't like that he lied about that. And then he came back and said, well, no, it's only the ones that I was getting a salary for. It's like, come on, campaign. Like, you guys got to clean this up. I don't love
I
the,
don't feel like he lied about. Desiree, do you know more information about that? Did you want to come up? If you do, because I feel like he's being misrepresented. Like he did work for them, but he didn't make all these big decisions.
Okay.
he was literally the chair.
Okay. So are we talking about Stephen Carney being a conservative? Is that what we're talking about?
No.
We're talking about him moving the office that when he was working for, what was it he's working for, the asset management company?
Well, Brookfield, yeah.
Brookfield,
Yeah.
moving the office.
Okay.
And,
So
like,
it was the shareholders that made the final decision, is what Indigo said, and that's what I remember too. But you're like, but either way, it really
it's the
doesn't have
board
much
that
to do
makes
with
the
the
decision.
politics, you know.
I just think these are things I think he could have answered honestly, and I don't think we would have a problem with that as Canadians.
But if we're talking about honesty, I have a question for you. What about PP not getting a security clearance?
Well, but
Because
hold
that's
on.
a big deal to me.
I've even given you what I don't like about PP. Like, I think we can talk honestly about Carney as well without doing what about PP,
Oh,
right?
no, I'm just curious though, because this is one that I really don't understand why the security clearance is something that actually I do. It's suspicious to me that he won't get it.
So this,
And
yeah,
he
again,
comes
I
up
think
with
this
all
is
kinds
something
of
they've done a
reasons,
poor
but
job.
everybody else is doing it. Every other leader's done. Carney's already done it. Every other leader's done it. Jagmeet has his. Elizabeth May has hers. What is it that really, like, the honest reason that PP won't? And I've heard some reasons that don't make any sense to me.
Well, there's a strategic reason to not be completely cut off from sharing the information about the foreign interference, right?
But
So
he doesn't get information if he doesn't get the clearance.
he can't do anything with the information if he does get the clearance. But if he does find out about it from some other way, he can speak about it freely in the House.
No, that's not how that works.
Yes, it
Sorry.
is.
Okay. So you want to talk about Mark Carney not being honest, right? Let's talk about that.
I didn't necessarily want to do that.
Okay.
I said that both of them have
You
issues that
opened
have
that
been
door when
litigated
you
in the
said
media.
you
And I
opened the
even
door.
said that we don't need to litigate the stuff about Carney because we've seen it.
Okay, but you opened that door when you said Mark Carney can't be honest. That's the door you opened, so that's the door we're going to go through.
Okay.
Okay. Because here's the thing.
Okay.
All politicians are going to see. My thing is, I think we need to revamp our system. We can't do it right now, but I think honestly, we need to revamp the system because we need a government that's going to work for the people.
Yes.
Not the people working for the government. That's what I feel. Okay. Now, as a one person, right? As just my opinion as an Indigenous person, and I'm going to put this in here because this is important. My feeling is we need more Indigenous representation for our country. That's what I think. Because we have PP over here saying that, oh, we partook in residential schools. Oh, we don't need, compensation for residential school survivors. We, he's going to make us the most rich people. We don't want to be the richest people in the world. We just want to have a voice where it matters. We just want to know that we are understood. We don't want to have to scream and protest to get our point across. We want to be at that table with everybody. Everybody gets equal representation. That's all we want. And I think that's the main thing we need. I don't like the Liberals. I don't like the NDP. And I sure as hell don't like the Conservatives. I
I
have
guys,
watched politics
beautifully
as
said.
I've grown up watching politics. This needs to stop. Our government needs to stop dragging us through the mud and telling us false promises to get elected and do nothing of what they said. Trudeau, as much as I didn't like him, I adore that man because he did more for the Indigenous community than any prime minister in the history of this country.
I agree.
Not even his
And it's not
dad
enough
did
yet,
anything
but
for
it's
this
gets
country.
better. Like at least he made
It's
changes.
not enough, but at least he tried. At
Hmm.
least he
We got the
tried
truth and
his
well, you guys,
hardest.
we did the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. We have our calls to action. We've made progress. Are we
Oh
there
yeah,
yet? No.
and not to mention, someone made a really good comment. That treaty fund, that treaty account for the First Nations. Where do you
Hmm.
think all your And I'm just gonna say this one thing, and then I'm gonna quietly shut up because I don't want to take too much time on this. The fact that the First Nations bank account was paying for everyone's surplus, everyone's CERB, everyone, like every time you got an amount of money from the government, it came from the Indigenous First Nations trust accounts.
Oh,
They
I didn't
don't
know
have
that.
enough money. There should be at least $2.2 trillion today in that account. The government was ordered by the Supreme Court of Canada to hand it over to the First Nations, and they can't because there's not enough money in that account. The CN Railway was put together by that money. There's so many things that were put together with that money. The Oslo Canal was funded by that account.
Yeah.
First Nations have been funding shit in this country and not getting a dime, and we pay taxes if we don't live on reserves. That's all I want to say because this government is corrupt, and I'm not saying all Canadians, but most Canadians that I've talked to, oh, you don't pay taxes, you don't do this. I pay my taxes every year. I do my tax. I don't get a tax return. I pay in. You're not exempt if you don't live on a reserve. That's
Oh,
the thing people have to understand. Look, actually, Jana, I will give you the link to what I found,
okay.
so that you can look it up because I really would like you to
If you
understand
could
what I'm
PM it
talking
to me, like private message it to
about. Oh
me,
yeah,
because I won't catch it
yeah,
here. That would be awesome. And
yeah.
somebody in the comments talked about how's that clean water going. I wanted to address that because it's going well. Are we there yet? No, but has there been improvements? Absolutely.
There's
Uh,
only 34,
Did you freeze?
34 reserves.
there's 100 since progress since 2015, and this is from Government of Canada website. 147 long-term drinking water advisories have been lifted since 2015. 35 remaining in 33 communities. So that is progress. That's huge progress. And 300
I
short-term drinking water advisories prevented from becoming long-term. So
I would
are we
caution
there yet?
taking
No.
government of Canada.
Pardon me?
I would caution taking their stats and actually like I wish there was like for the Indigenous community like they need like we need like basically something that like another portal or platform to land on to see how their kind of records actually match up to the government of Canada because I feel like they say like and both governments have done this. They say they're going to give all this support and whatnot. They'll say, and maybe they have done all those things for clean drinking water. I'm not saying they haven't, but I would love to know what actually our First Nations actually report back on that.
I
Because
think before,
it
like
feels like
I've seen a lot. I've been to a lot of First Nations TikToks, and I do have some people that I'm connected with on TikTok First Nations, and I haven't heard anything contradictory about the water.
yeah, fair
Uh,
enough. Like I
and I'm
always
not saying
want
it's
like
not there, but oh, come on, Treaty Bird. come on up. And Tree Birder knows a lot about Indigenous stuff
Yes.
too.
Yeah, I'm out of my
So
depth on it, to be honest. I saw that one person say, like, I'm always looking for a conspiracy, maybe, but I'm not. I want to make sure there's a check and balance because, I mean, you just like look at all of our federal institutions. We get told that they're at an arm's length. And so the minister that is in charge of that, down to the deputy minister, and then out to the board of 9,
mhm.
there's never accountability with the actual ministers. Like when we saw like Champlain with SDTC, he's just like, he kept on repeating, it's arm's length, it's arm's length. I trusted the board as they were funneling money into their own businesses, right? Like that was terrible, that Annette Vachon thing. And like, why didn't they actually say, like, you know what, we want to get to the bottom of this, here is the paperwork? Like, why did they hold it back? Like, you'd think, like, if it was your company, you'd want to get rid of all the people doing wrong. You'd want to be transparent to the rest of the,
Yeah.
it was just odd to
Treaty.
me.
Let's give Treaty 6 a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Hey, Treaty.
Hey, happy Saturday.
Happy
Happy
Saturday.
Saturday.
I feel like Scooty kind of switched the subject a little bit, and I'm interested to know about. I'm also interested in holding ministers and deputy ministers accountable, but it's challenging. But having been a public servant, it does happen. It can happen from the inside. But back to our water situation, and Scooty, I think it's interesting for you to say that you would like to hear from our stats and the records we're keeping and things like that, and that assumes that we have the capacity to do that. That assumes we have the resources to do that. The only organization really that keeps track of everything is Indigenous Services Canada. The AFN does as well, but not all 634 First Nations are signatory to the Assembly of First Nations or provide their input to them. So it's really a challenging conversation to have because not only the only agency that does track any of this is ISK, and so the water situation is the best it has ever been in the history of this country when it comes to clean and safe drinking water for First Nations on reserve. And something that most people aren't aware of potentially or mindful of is that the provinces control access to water. They manage the water resources. They manage how it's allocated, how much water is left in the system, who gets licenses, when and where. In this situation that I'm in is Alberta. We have a Water Act here, which is administered by the province of Alberta, where they issue licenses for allocation for industry, agriculture, municipalities, all of that. And they have set up their Water Act with a concept called first in time, first in right. And what that does is gives a hierarchy to the issuance of these licenses. So the oldest licenses will be honored. The newest licenses come off in water crisis or water conservation. So if I have a new license for my commercial activity, say, and there's not enough water for me to now operate, my license would be the first to be withdrawn. And whereas an older one in the 1900s, when they were first issued, was to mostly farmers in the south of Alberta, theirs would be honored until, there's absolutely no water to give. And the interesting thing why I bring this up is Alberta never issued a single water license to First Nations until maybe in the last decade, they've started to do that. And another thing that happens provincially that impacts water for First Nations is there's a tendency for provinces to approve industrial activities that result in contamination in near or in close proximity to the source water for First Nations. And that's out of the hands of the federal government and very challenging.
Provincial, isn't it? Because we have that problem with Danielle Smith right now that she's letting, is it coal mining? Near one of the...
Oh, yeah. Coal mining. So the oil sands, let's think of the oil sands, which everybody thinks is our big economic driver in this province. I've heard some statistics that it's in reality not. It's a liability. It's a greater liability than it is a benefit to Albertans because, and I will full disclose everything. I am an ex-Alberta Environment employee.
Mhm.
And then on my second term as a Government of Alberta staffer, I worked for Indigenous Relations as an Aboriginal Relations advisor. So in that role, I got to sit at the tailings ponds table to always ensure that the Indigenous voice is being represented and that Indigenous rights are being considered around those tables. They make sure that Aboriginal Relations folks are involved in those conversations. And while I was at that table, I learned and devastatingly that this province, neither nor do the producers in this province have any technology, science, or understanding on how they're going to deal with the tailing ponds in the oil sands. So right now they're working on a dilute and dump process, which means they're diluting these toxic tailings and they're dumping them into the Athabasca River, which is upstream of the Fort Chip community, where there's two First Nations, Athabasca Chippewa First Nation and the Mikisew Cree Nation, as well as the Métis folks that live there. And those folks live off the land and sustain themselves with fish that are being polluted and contaminated by oil sands activities.
Yeah.
So that's like a big water discussion.
Yeah.
Water is a huge.
I wanted,
It would be a great
and I
topic
wanted to
someday.
take the time.
I learned a lot in that, to
Sure,
be honest.
I
Like,
just wanted to say, I did find that article that I was talking about with the First Nations Bank. I'll send it to you after
Okay,
the live
thank you.
here because it's not letting me message you on this here.
Yeah, okay,
But
thank you very
I'll
much.
definitely send it. Oh no problem, honey.
Yeah, and that's all. I just wanted to just because a lot of folks don't understand the complexities of the water situation.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
feel I want
I
to
had no
remind
idea.
everybody that nobody really gave a damn about clean drinking water for First Nations before 2015 when Justin Trudeau actually raised the flag about this issue. So kudos to him. I'm really happy that more people do care about it. But, I do question that sometimes. You didn't really care much about it before, but I guess
You're right.
People didn't know
Now
about it
and
either.
then,
So
now and then,
thank
I
you.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. That was awesome, actually.
Okay.
It's funny because, like, obviously natural resources like oil and gas are, the jurisdiction of the province, but I just, for whatever reason, I have water in my head was a federal thing, but I think that's because of Trudeau in 2015.
Yes, but
Right.
we can't start.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of talk. People are wondering, oh, the Liberals also went to court to push back on saying that it's not their obligation to provide clean drinking water. Like, I don't know the exact terminology on that case. I'm not a fan of that case, but I think I understand why the federal government is doing it because they want the courts. They have to test these things in the courts, right? That's always the sad thing. Like, it takes time to test these positions and get the courts to determine how to interpret the laws. So I really believe that Canada's pushing back on jurisdiction over drinking water because it does fall to the provinces and they want the courts to say that clearly.
Can I just ask clarity on that? Because that's interesting. I didn't know there was anything before the court. So is the government of Canada saying, like, this isn't their responsibility, give it to the province?
Yep. They're not saying much about the province. I haven't read the statement of claim though.
Like, who's the complainant?
Good question. Let me go research that and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
That's crazy because just the reason why I'm so interested in that is because they also, like, when they passed that bill, like, basically they called it the No More Pipelines bill. I'm out ahead of my skis here. I don't know enough about this, but I swear that they were challenged in court and trying to say that was in their purview. So if they're arguing the opposite way on the water, that's an interesting,
Can I
it's just an interesting thing that they're.
Well, I was just going to bring this up like really quickly, Marshy. Just if you really do care about the water, PP has pretty much said that he's going to open up selling our resources to the United States, and and he's going to cut the red tape. Guess who the red tape is?
It's us. But can I just chime in while I'm just doing my research? You know what? That's very telling when PP says, remember he said, we will collect the taxes from these resource developers and direct some of those to First Nations so they can buy their own drinking water.
Which is an insulting thing to say.
Own drinking water.
Well,
Nobody buys drinking water in this country. So
right.
that was very telling that he's willing to think about selling our water resources. So think about that, everybody, please, because water is a human right. Water is life, and water isn't just for us; it's for all the living species that we share this Mother Earth with.
Oh, and going on what Treaty Bird said, thank you guys for saying that. Water is sustainable only until we have no water. Water is not to be sold. Water is not to be paid for. Water is given to us as long as we allow it to be there. Once we start drilling and start doing more oil work and do more of this, the water becomes null and void. The water is in our bodies. The water is in our veins. It goes through our entire system. If we do not save the water and the earth, the water will cease to exist. We need that water to sustain life. Everything we do needs water. If we are going to get rid of water, we are getting rid of life. That's a fact. So that being said, there's another thing that Poilievre said. He will make the indigenous people the richest people in this land.
By selling
resources. Selling resources. And
I
taking parts of
don't
things
want to
he
speak
doesn't
for the Indigenous
belong
people,
to
but
us.
is that what you want? Is that what the Indigenous people want, is to be rich?
No, absolutely
Exactly.
not.
That's how I...
Absolutely.
Well, we can't, even me and Smarshy, we cannot speak for all.
No,
I'm
nobody
sorry.
can speak for everything, but
for myself. I speak for myself.
There are some First Nations and Métis people that do want to realize the same type of wealth as other Canadians, and they should have that opportunity.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have to sell the resources for it, and that's...
No, and their future generations. That's what should, we're not opposed to selling resources. It's at what cost do we sell the resources?
Right.
In the manner in which we access those resources, how quickly we put the land back. This is the biggest issue we're facing in Turtle Island, in the United States, Canada, all of it. And I bet you I'll argue the world, is we don't put things back quickly enough. If we would only start to remediate and reclaim sites as quickly as we open them up and take the stuff out of there, we wouldn't have the cumulative effects, climate change, loss of biodiversity, and the impacts to water that we're dealing with today.
Okay,
that was perfectly said, because that's kind of like that's the argument, right, between on the two extremes. Like one person on the one extreme will say we got to leave all of those resources alone. The other people will say it doesn't matter what we do to the environment to pull them up, right? And obviously neither of those positions can work. And again, I don't know. I can't get into the resource extraction enough to really, have a good dialogue there. I would hope in Canada we're going to do it the most responsible way, but I don't know.
Here's the biggest problem when it comes to reservations and federal government.
Question, sir? Scott, just tell us your age. It's just a TikTok thing.
Oh, I'm 50. I'm old.
Then go ahead.
We're good. The one big thing I disagree with when it comes to, and listen, I can give you a list that's huge. My biggest problem is that the federal government collects all the royalties when it comes to corporations on Indigenous lands, and then they dole it back out to them. And I think that the reservation should be more accountable for that rather than having the federal government dole it back to them. And where I would see that there'd be a better partnership when it comes to corporations and resources off that land, where you have a proper accounting with the council saying, yes, this is good for my people or not. And you don't have that right now. And no federal party is talking about this. So every party can say, I'm going to give Indigenous more this, more that, and they're funding.
What Pierre Poilievre's talking about.
Okay,
No,
and I'll speak to this a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and then let's do this water thing, and then I'm going to get to mental health a little bit, if that's okay with everybody. But go ahead.
I just want to say to Scoot for a second, because you and I agree on a lot of things. The problem is he's not saying that. He's saying we're going to make the reservations rich. You have to say we're giving them complete control of the resources versus going through the federal bank and then bringing it back to them like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
legitimately, he might be saying that, but you got to go one step further.
Yeah, I can take that.
So like,
I think that.
and listen, I vote conservative. I think both parties suck. I really do. But
yeah.
You're voting for the lesser evil right now, and like, so if the reses want this much control, give it to them. Like legitimately give it to them. And some will fail, some will succeed. Good for them. Like, I don't understand how this is still an argument in 2025. When I've been hearing this argument about this since like the 80s, and like I'm 50.
Okay. Can
Go
I
ahead.
speak to this?
I'll shut up. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I still can't find this case on the water stuff, but I don't know why it should be an easy Google. But anyways, let's talk about what I'll search for that and put it in the comments. It's not really that important right now because I think this is a really important conversation. So what you're talking about are two different things. So we have reserve lands in Canada, which were set aside for the use and benefit of the Indians that live there and are members of that First Nation. Those, when there's resources on those lands, those revenues generated from those resources go into what are called the Indian monies or the revenues accounts. And this is all administered under the Indian Act. And the Indian Act was written in 1867. So and this is because Canada treats First Nations like kids. Right, they're the parent, we're the kids, so we don't obviously can't care for our money very well. So all the money that this is the Indian Act. This is me being facetious. Okay, so the money that's generated on reserve through that it has a permit. So that means that this, if say let's just talk about an oil and gas site on reserve, because all of them are permitted. There's a lot of activities that are going on reserve that don't have appropriate permits under the Indian Act. Because of that, that's a long haul story. I'll maybe do a TikTok on that. So follow me for more. But anyways, so if there's revenues generated on reserve, say through a well site, and that First Nation even has the mineral rights, so they own the minerals, and the company is only getting their mineral royalty, and the First Nation's actually going to realize the mineral wealth. But that goes into what's called the revenue accounts, which are held in Ottawa. And in order for them to access those revenue funds, they have to write a band council resolution, which is a BCR. And then in that BCR, they have to demonstrate to Canada that what they're going to use those funds for will benefit everybody that's a member of that First Nation. So now you
messed
have,
up.
yeah, well, this is the paternal relationship that we have with the federal crown and with the British crown. But then we have traditional territories. So that's all the lands off reserve that we share with you. And Canada has come to realize that the resources were never ceded. And the courts have also demonstrated, not necessarily that verbatim, but the courts have held up our rights. So they understand that our rights are connected to land. So when companies and governments are accessing resources, they're impacting our rights because they're taking away areas where we hunt, fish, gather, trap, practice ceremony, and be on the land as Indigenous people.
Can I ask a quick question? Mm-hmm. When you use the word ceded, that sounded important as far as like the land around. Unceded. I'm not understanding. Sorry.
Unceded.
Yeah, unceded. So that means like with the treaties that we did not cede the territory. The treaties were about sharing the territories. And then the reserve lands were what were going to be set aside for us specifically. And the rest were to be shared jointly with the Canadians and First Nations and the Métis as well. And I see Just Scott, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I really do. And my argument for this is we should abolish the Indian Act where those territories should be able to decide what happens to it.
So that's...
hold on. Because if the second that they have to go through the federal government to justify resources, and then the federal government gives them back their money, that's a middleman.
And then also, so the interest made on those revenues funds your guys' services. But here's the thing, just
I don't want you to fund I don't want you to fund me.
I know, But
Why-
that's fine.
why
And
don't-
here's the
why don't
problem.
you
Here's
wanna
the thing.
cooperate? Sorry,
Just take it's I just want to finish explaining for a second. There are 634 First Nations in this country that are under and administered through the Indian Act. All of them are at varying levels of capacity, varying levels of healing. Some people really like the Indian Act, and that's where they want to stay because it honors that relationship they have with the Crown, where others do not. They want out from under the Indian Act. So Canada has written new legislation. There's a new legislation called the First Nations Lands Management Act, where First Nations can manage their own lands and their own monies. It's associated with the First Nations Monies Act. So there are new legislations for First Nations to opt out of the Indian Act and into, so that they don't have to have this paternal relationship with the federal crown. But it's very complicated. And why don't you join me on Monday night for Indigenous Matters with Beaver Politics, and we can talk about it more. 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. See you there, Jess Scott and Scooty.
I was
That
going to
was
say,
awesome.
just good plug.
Good job.
And using water and land resources, the topic would be a great one someday, Treaty.
Yeah, I've learned a lot there. That was crazy.
I've learned a lot, yeah, and so
Yeah.
that would be a great topic sometime.
And my
Hold on,
question
I've
is, why
got-
do you not want to cooperate? First Nations were here before we were here. We should be honoring everything that they're asking for. And I don't understand. Why not?
That's
What's the problem with that?
We're colonizers.
Why not?
We never had the right to this land in the first place.
didn't
We
ask to be
colonized.
here.
okay.
We didn't ask to be here, right? We were
Hold on,
guests
hold on.
here. Hold on, nothing. Why do you have a problem with collaborating and sharing?
Then give your. Hold on. Where do you live?
I live in British Columbia.
Okay, so I guarantee you there's a First Nations really close to you within
Yeah,
200
I
kilometers.
sit on
That will take your
Ktunaxa
property.
territory. Yeah,
That
I'm
will
fine
take
with
your
that.
property.
I'm sorry,
to them.
Jenna.
No, they
Give
will
it to
not.
them.
They don't want to take anything
That's not
from
what they want.
That's not what they want.
That's not what they
You're
want.
not understanding any of it.
Hold on. Hold
Well,
on a
that's-
second.
Hold on, nothing. They don't want
I'll
to take your
probably
land
fix it.
from you, bud.
Okay. Can I?
Let's let Smarshy talk. Go ahead, Smarshy.
Okay. So when we talk about land back, we don't want your house. We don't want your property. We want the rights to make this land flourish. We want the rights to stop climate change. Even if you don't believe it, we want to make this earth better and this country better for everyone involved. That is what we want. That is what it means to have land back. That's it.
They're
Don't
welcome.
take
But what does that
land.
mean?
They
Just
helped
got
us.
has his
You
hand
guys are
up,
not
so
being fair to anything and anything that you think in your ideological brain. You are a guest
Okay.
on Turtle Island, and I'm a whitey.
oh.
Okay, I have heritage coming from Europe. So
Okay.
don't
need to be
talk to me
precise,
about
though.
being colonization
Okay.
because my family
Oh,
were colonizers.
okay.
You have
I
to
think
accept the fact that this is what it is.
okay, just Scott does want to respond. He had his hand up, so go ahead.
I legitimately want all of the reses and the Indigenous people in Canada, and I'm trying to say terms correctly. So if I say something wrong, please don't get mad at me. I'm trying to be political here. I want reses to have absolute control and access of any resources on that property. I want them to have full control, and then I want the population of those reses to vote the right council in that makes sure that those resources are properly done to benefit the ground
They
and the
already
people.
do. They
So,
already
hold on.
do have those rights.
No, because everything goes through
Yes,
the
they
federal
do.
government. What I've been saying is everything goes through the federal government, and I disagree with that. I think that wherever you are, you should be in control of that. That's what I've been saying.
No, it doesn't. They have their own. They have their own councils. They do their own voting. They have their own democracy.
Well, that's the problem.
And the government
can stop
the
it.
government makes no decision about when resources are
That is-
accessed
that
on
is not
reserve.
correct.
Only
That is
the
not correct.
only the chief and council. The chief
That's
and
not
council.
correct.
The
You're-
chief and council have to write.
You're going to tell her what's going on her land.
Let's
Well, I
everybody. I'll be
don't
quiet.
care.
Let's give Treaty Six a chance to talk. Okay,
Access to everything. They have this.
Treaty.
No.
Did you finish what you were saying? I just want to give everyone a chance to talk.
So again, the Indian Act administers how land is used on reserve. You can issue permits or leases. None of those things, none of them happen without a band council resolution signed off by the majority of the chief and council. So Canada cannot walk onto a reserve and go, hey, we're going to drill for oil here today. and we're going to put all that money in your revenue account and use the interest for our needs. That's not the way it works. That nothing happens on reserve without chief and council's authorization ever. Used to, but not anymore.
So
And
just
even back in
clarity-wise,
the 1800s when they were trying to take the lands back, they had to get chief and council majority sign off on it.
just if I could ask clarity-wise, so then is effectively the crux of that then the fact that it has to go up to the Fed and back down, and so the money
So-
should just stay locally, right?
Okay, yeah, because the way the Indian Act is written, remember, this is the key thing about it, is that anything that's done with the lands and the monies has to benefit the people that belong there, all of them. So this is how they reduce the ability for chief and councils to line their own pockets thing, right? Because they have to clearly demonstrate that they're spending the money to benefit the band. Now we have First Nations who started their own corporations, and they start then they have their own source revenue, it's called. That has nothing to do with Ottawa. Ottawa doesn't touch that. That goes in their own personal bank accounts, business accounts. They can use that to supplement their budgets in any way. But the real bitch of the fact of that is sometimes Canada will then reduce the budgets for other things like housing, education, health, because now all of a sudden you have your own source revenue and you should be able to pay for some of these things yourself, which really isn't appropriate because they're just trying to build their governance structures, their communities, build up their capacity for their people. And also remember that we're dealing with a population that haven't had the same access to health as other Canadians. So our health outcomes are less. And also our education systems on reserve, sadly, have been below standard for anywhere else in Canada. And we still have sometimes chief and councils that only have a grade 8 education. So there's still that parental fiduciary, it's called a fiduciary obligation that Canada has to First Nations to ensure that their best interest is being upheld, and this is also in what's called the honor of the crown. So I've done some videos on these things too, if you're interested in looking into those more. But again, I don't want to take over Jana's video, Jana's live today on these
I wanted to
matters.
let this
That
go
was
because
my fault. I appreciate
it's okay. I've let it go a little off topic because this is such an important topic. And it came up, so I didn't want to just skip over it. But if anybody is interested in learning more about treaty rights, Indigenous in Canada, our history, all of that, Treaty 6 Birder has an amazing live on Mondays, 6 to 9, I think, Mountain Standard Time, or 6 to 8, sorry, 6 to 8 Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah.
Give or take.
And I did find the case. So yeah, the federal government is trying to figure out whose jurisdiction it is basically what the case is about. I just found a CBC clip on it, but it's out there in the world because there was a justice, actually a justice who did find that Canada is not obligated to provide drinking water, and previously.
Oh,
Anyways,
wow. Okay. So
it's the provinces, and I've always known this to be the fact, but Canada, because one more last thing, sorry, Jana. So what happens a lot of times on reserve that people don't understand is we have regulatory gaps. So the only laws that apply on reserve, because reserves aren't even owned by the First Nation. Here's another little tidbit for you. Reserve lands are federal crown lands held in trust for the First Nation. So those are federal crown lands. Canada owns the reserve lands. There's no title to the reserve land by the First Nation. So all the federal regulations apply on reserve. The environmental, health, education standards. We follow the CCME standards, not the provincial standards. So we have what's called a regulatory gap on reserve. Like one example I'll give you is waste management. We don't have laws and there's one, it's a shitty regulation of the Indian Act for waste management, but it has no teeth and it has no ability to really make waste management a positive.
I thought reserves were sovereign.
No.
Nope.
Nice try.
In the U.S. they are. So
no, they're not. In the U.S., the American government I went to a reservation in Montana, and there's a whole town of white people on that reservation, and they're operating the restaurant, and the laundromat, and the grocery store, not the indigenous people from there. And I don't mean anybody in offense when I say white at all, because my mother is a non-indigenous.
It's fine, man. Like,
Yeah,
But
we have
white people shouldn't be running everything. Like,
if you look at the Indian Affairs Act in Parliament, it's a white man running it, not an Indigenous person. Walker-New had to school them on it.
you're next
But
to
that
Scott.
man could be
Anyways, okay.
like when we're talking about like literal
Oh,
race
just
and
a second.
culture.
Can we give just Scott a chance? He had his hand up and he hasn't spoken for a while.
There's been multiple, and I'm going to say women who are indigenous, but in power over the last several years that have been thrown to the woods. Like, and I'm saying they were fighting for this and got thrown to, and we're talking conservative and liberal on both sides. So here's my problem is that everyone's getting power by screaming, here's the problem, and no one fixes it. And like, this is both all four parties. I'm not going to say one party is more guilty than the other. So like, at some point in time, Canadians have to put their heels in and go, stop. So like a friend of mine, my best friend, I grew up with him. He is now doing contracts for reservations for doing water. After Walker in Ontario, he went and got a certification to fix this problem. And he told me, he's like, the biggest problem of why the reses can't get the water fixed is the federal government. There's so many restrictions and it's easy. He's like, I can fix a system on every res in Canada in a year, but it's the federal government stopping this because they're using it as a political funding thing. Like,
No, they're not. That's a lie.
Listen, he financially is very invested in this.
I realize there's only 32 reserves that don't have running water now. Do you understand that they've put every reserve in Canada, but 32 have running drinking water? There are barriers because of lack of staff, lack of education, being able to keep people in those jobs. You're totally misinformed.
Hold on.
And I will let
And
you
So
finish
the
off.
lack, hold on. Let me ask you a question. The lack of funding and the lack of education and the lack of employees comes from where?
You're right. Oh, you're right, Just Scott. But, okay, here's the thing. So remember, there's 634 First Nations. All of them need to have one, if not two, water operators. And if you try to function at the same salary as off reserve, then you're making between $80,000 to $110,000 a year. What a water operator makes on reserve is $50,000. And if he's making more than is being supplemented by somebody else, by the tribe or the band, the First Nation. My husband was the water operator for the First Nation that him and I both worked at. And these funds, yes, come from the federal government. But remember, we also those budgets have to go to the House to be approved. So there's always somebody at that House of Commons that's voting against those budgets also. And
this goes back to what I just said, is that you guys should not have your resources go back to the federal government. This is what I said from the beginning. And you guys,
okay.
so hold on.
Not
Let's say
every First Nation can manage money. And I'm sorry, I don't want to talk shit about my people, but there are some corrupt people in our nations as well who also need to have this level of oversight, or else, because the lateral violence and all of the shitty outcomes of colonialism and the Indian Act still exist today. And we're not in a place yet where First Nations are ready to take on all of that.
if you have the federal government treating you like children all the time, at what point do you allow them to grow up? Like, and it's no offense. Like, I legitimately,
Canada has been trying to get out of the Indian business for 100 years.
What's the solution then?
And you
The
don't have a right
solution-
to, you don't have a right
so-
to be speaking for this. You don't have a right to be speaking on this. You don't.
Yeah, we do.
The
Yes, we
solution
do.
is absolutely you guys having this concern. I love that you guys came up and had this concern. I appreciate you so much for that. And that's part of the solution. You both are confessed to be conservatives. So talk to your conservative MPs about how you feel about how
We
Indigenous
do
people.
regular.
But no, I'm not talking about feelings. What's the solution?
So the solution is we got to slow the hell down and that make sure that First Nations have the time, the resources, the energy, the mental capacity, the health, all of it, the tools, everything we need to be
And
at
be
the
made a
same living
priority.
standard
Greedy,
as
man.
And be
I'm-
made
I'm-
a,
I'm
and be
with
made
ya.
a priority, and not be
But you-
112 on the conservative policy and
You're saying there's no
declaration
solution.
list. There is a solution, but you have to make it a priority. Reconciliation is everybody understanding and educating themselves,
time.
making it number one on the list.
Time is not an answer.
112 down on the policy and declarations. We are here as guests. We need to honor and support First Nations.
sounds
in
like
Inuit long before we
We
got
want an
here.
issue to keep going.
No,
is
we
what it
don't.
sounds
We
like
want
to
a
me.
solution to the problem, but we have to work hand in hand as partners and not look at them as like you called them those people. How dare you speak like that? You called them those
How
people.
dare you? I'm asking for a solution. You're
Well,
trying to
what's
keep
your,
it
what's your
going.
solution? What's your solution?
Your solution, you're saying, is time. The
been
guy
153
below
years.
you is saying,
Let's get
let's get the federal
it's been
government out of it. But then
153
Treaty's saying
years.
it has to
that
be
we
there.
have taken advantage of First Nations and this land.
Yeah,
We
let's
have
talk.
taken
Like, we don't
over.
have to litigate
We
the
have
past.
not
What do we
given
do
our
moving
climate
forward?
or nature a chance to revive itself, and you guys just keep wanting to.
We're not
keep
talking about
on.
nature.
So what's
Yeah.
your solution? What's your solution?
No, we're not. We're talking about resources.
What's your solution?
Nature and resources are
Oh,
not
same.
separate. And
What's your
Indigenous
solution?
people and nature's not separate.
Oh my God. Do you want your own?
You cannot pull
Do you want your
resources
own
from this
liberty
earth
and
and not
freedom
put stuff
from the
back.
federal government or not?
They're part of our. Why should there be any decipheration? Why should they not be part of our federal government? Why should they not be our
Well,
federal
then you need to be
government?
specific
maybe-
what you
More of
want.
them in our
Otherwise, you're
federal
just
government.
complaining.
All right, Pixie,
Maybe the
hang on a
solution is
second.
having more Indigenous voices in our government.
Yeah.
No,
Maybe we
hold
can
on.
talk about it for another
Hold
50 years.
Hold on. Listen, I'm going to be honest. Here's the problem: is that the Indigenous people, the Indigenous clans, the reservations, as people of my age call them, do not have full access and resources. And if they had that, there might be some corruption for a while, but eventually they would be voting in the right bands to take care of that.
Yeah, the people, the local people in that situation can take over.
Okay, everybody, not everybody talking at once, because then we can't hear. Go ahead, Pixie Lee. Okay, Pixie, does anybody, who wants to talk
Like,
next?
I just don't get it. Like,
So it's very complicated is the thing. And you have to remember too. So
I understand it's complicated.
It's
What is
so
the solution?
complicated.
Otherwise, this is virtue signaling and like just making the issue go
So the
longer and longer and
solution
longer.
is, I'll tell you, okay. The solution is honoring the sovereignty of the First Nations in this country.
Okay,
Honoring the sovereignty of the
Man.
Let me
Métis,
finish.
allowing us to have some authority over the natural resources in our territories, which is underway, let me tell you. But because now we're going to potentially go into an election period, some of that's going to stop for a little bit. But this previous Trudeau government did start writing legislation. 2 pieces of legislation have been written that allow us to have some authority over land. We're working on, and I'm part of some of this, we're working on basically to a form of Indigenous regulator.
Okay,
But
just stop.
that's 2 years away.
After Peter.
It's
Go ahead.
years away. When you have 634 different voices around a table, tell me how you're going to find consensus. Tell me how you're going to make it work. That is such a challenging conversation.
Take the
that
federal
nobody
government out
wants
of
to
it.
put
Leave
the
people
money-
to their own.
Okay, just
They
stop.
can't.
Just, you're next.
There's a treaty in place and
No,
there's
stop.
legislation.
he's right. Give you
You're
guys
making
full
excuses now.
control. Give you full control.
You use that word
the
one more
federal
time,
government
we're
out
going to drop you because you
completely.
do not
Why?
use that word here.
It's actually, I'm giving respect.
It's fine.
I am too. Want
Yeah, I
First
believe
Nations
you are.
Call them
to
you
take
people.
control.
You people.
Yeah, when you say you
do
people,
not
it does
use
come
that.
off kind of.
Oh my
I'm just
God.
gonna say,
We're
everyone,
going to
just a
tone
second.
police over human
serious?
suffering.
Let's not use the term "you people" because that is not great wording.
Oh,
Are we
Okay.
really
Hold
going to
on, hold
tone
on.
police over real
You can say
human
the
suffering?
Indigenous.
Thing is-
That's not that hard to just say the Indigenous.
I'm just happy to have the conversation. Right now, I don't care about words.
Sir,
Yeah, that's
I'm
okay.
happy that both
I
of you gentlemen are
legitimately-
here to
hold
talk to about this. But I really don't want to
Treaty.
take over Jana's video.
I was
Live.
going to say
Treaty.
I should get back to what we're talking about. Maybe treaty. This would be a really great topic for you to have sometime on your show.
Well, like I said, if you guys want to continue this
I'm
conversation
gonna
on
follow
Monday,
treaty.
I
How do I
host
follow them?
Indigenous Matters on Monday,
You want to follow
and we
Treaty?
can talk about this for 2 full hours if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That
I
sounds
am
like a good plan.
so going to find a way to follow you, even though I'm working at that point in time, because I think an open conversation without political talk is very important.
Yeah,
Very
you just
it's all political.
all you got to do is click on Treaty's picture, and you should get an icon and or
No,
look in
I
your.
got it. I
You got it? Okay.
But can I say something?
Yeah, and I've started following you both, so
Can
you're
I-
welcome to follow me and join our conversation on Mondays. Like I said, and it's every Monday I host the conversation and my different guests, and we talk about different issues. But we can talk about this. I think this is a really relevant conversation, and maybe this is what we'll make happen on Monday. If you
Okay,
want.
so one last thing before we change topics. Can I say one thing, please?
Mhm. Go ahead. And I
You
want to say, everyone,
cannot
thank you for
have
being
an
so
open
respectful. Go ahead.
And I try to be very respectful in everything I say. You
Yeah.
cannot have a conversation when people try to demean phrases or words when you're trying to be honest to have an open dialogue.
Yeah.
That's when someone says, "Oh, you can't use that word," when you're trying to have an open dialogue.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong. I really do.
Okay.
I don't disagree, but I do think that it's fair to hear, like, if somebody is offended by the term "you people," to hear why they're offended by it. I don't offend that easily. Like, I've been called way worse, and it doesn't.
Oh, me
So
too.
have I.
Well, like,
My
Treaty, it's been
ex-girlfriend-
an awesome conversation, honestly. Like, and I got frustrated there, but it's because I actually sit here thinking like there's human suffering happening, and the more we just talk about like in a circle, now more people are like literally passing away and suffering, and so it's like I know it's maybe I sound offended, maybe the way I'm talking is harsh or not the right tone or what have you, but I think it's actually more compassion to say fuck this, let's get a solution.
You know,
Yes.
I'm glad that you said that because you have
Amen.
restored my faith in conservative people. Thank you.
No, I mean, both of you have been really lovely, and I want to say that thank you. Like, as conservatives, you've both been very lovely, and I really
I am
appreciate
sorry
that.
for getting fired up.
Well, sometimes politics does that to people, but you've both been very respectful, and I really appreciate that.
Can I ask you a question, host?
Yeah.
Do you think conservatives are animals?
No, but I've had a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of the conservatives on lives get very attacky and very, like, and that doesn't mean everybody. Like, that's what I mean. Like, you guys have been great, or it can be challenging at times, but I find it's hard. It's certainly the Canadian conservatives are certainly much easier than the MAGAs. The MAGAs just scream a lot. I don't know if you've ever been in an American live, but that can be
I think
jarring.
unfortunately
Dual citizenship,
when it comes
that
to
I'm a MAGA.
Americans, hold on. Let me. I've spent a lot of time with Yankees, so I can kind of get this a little bit. They're very isolated. They don't like legitimately. A lot of Americans haven't left their state or left their county, so they're very isolated on what they think. They don't want evil. They just are worried about their local.
Yeah, I mean,
what
some are bad.
happens outside of the area, they're like, I don't care. I'm worried about local. And so when you have a politician, when it comes to elections, going, we got to do this, but take care of your county. They hear take care of your county. Like, and I can't blame them for that. But, and unfortunately, I think Americans have made a lot of wrong decisions that with the internet and social media, they're actually waking up to going, wait, we did what? Like, hold on, we did what? Like, I don't think they understand it, and now they're waking up.
You mean for their decision to vote for Trump, or?
For every politician, probably for the last 30 years, has been an incorrect vote. Like, I'm not saying conservative or liberal, like Democrat. They're like, I can show you faults on every one of them, including Orange Man Bad right now. Like, it's unfortunately they make decisions that are affecting their nationality that I think a majority of their population didn't understand what they're voting for. And when it comes to Canada, oh my God, I'm getting on a soapbox. I apologize. Forgive me. You can mute me if you want. I'll look down occasionally to see if I'm muted. Canadians unfortunately hit hot box items, and they go for the rah, look for, okay, let's go to clean water on the reses. And then everyone's like, oh my God, how do the reses don't have clean water? And they freak out. They lose their mind. And then they vote for the party that says we're going to do it. And then guess what? That party doesn't do it. And it's liberals, conservatives, New Democrats, they're all guilty of this. They use this to get a vote.
I was going to kind of interject and just say, as far as I know statistically, Trudeau's come through with 90% of his campaign promises. And I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm just saying 90% is a pretty good track record.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that I vote conservative, and they leave me behind a majority of the time.
Yeah.
And I do not believe any party, when they come up with a campaign promise to do some whack thing to try and help something that's been a problem for 50 years, and their party's never done anything to fix it. Like, legitimately, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm voting for conservatives, not because they're the best party. In my opinion, they're the least of three evils, which means I have no confidence in them. I'm just trying to vote the least damage.
Do you really think PP is the least damage though? Because well, let me start with, how do you feel about Trump? Because I feel like there's a lot of parallels between how PP is running his campaign and how Trump ran his campaign. And I'm definitely not alone in seeing that.
Well, they're both conservatives, right?
Well, it's more than that.
They're not even close. Like PP is a Democrat in the States. Like the Conservative Party in Canada is the Democrats in the States 20 years ago. Like, I'm being honest with you.
I don't agree.
Well, you can not agree if you want, but look at the voting status of what they do on both sides, and then look of where the parties have gone. That's how it is. Like, I know everyone wants to say that PP is Trudeau.
No, PP's not like Trudeau. Trump, that's better. Just say they're not the same. It's okay.
Here's the problem: is that you've got a New York Democrat, and I'm sure a majority of the people in this live don't understand. New York is a whole different city versus every city. It really is. Like, I've spent so many years in New York doing business, trucking, and everything else. It's a whole different thing. It's not Democrat, Republican. Like, legitimately, they're
good here.
And so, like, the fact that Trump was a Democrat all his life and then won in the Republicans, doing what Democrats would have done 30 years ago, like, I don't understand this absolute hatred. I'm not saying he's right on everything. I disagree.
Hatred for Trump, you mean?
My biggest fear with Trump is that he gets so much power, he can do anything he wants.
Well, there's a constitution.
That seems to be already the case.
There's checks and balances on the constitution.
And that's why I appreciate the constitution that can stop him, because you can have someone that wants to be the leader of a country to do the best, and they exceed their powers. You need check and balances for that, correct?
But do you think Trump has checks and balances right now? Because he's got Congress, he's got the Supreme Court.
No. He doesn't have Congress. He doesn't have the Senate. Yes, a majority of those people are on that party side, but you have people voting against him. So, like, it's not a super majority. Like, in Canada, politics is
what we're kind of going down a rabbit hole, no?
Like, yeah, a little bit.
I know we are. I'm sorry. I
didn't mean I want to back up and ask you, let's get to something more Canadian, but still related.
Yes.
How do you feel about Trump threatening to annex Canada?
Okay, so hold on. I'll ask you a question. Who do you blame for the annexing of Canada? Trump or Canadian government? Trump.
There is no $200 billion that we owe him. He is making up that number, and if you do your research, you'll find that. He has he just decided he wants us, Greenland, and Panama, and it doesn't work that way in a democracy. You don't just take over your allies.
Go ahead. My belief in it is that Trump is doing what is best for America, and as hard as he pushes against Canada and all the rhetoric that he does say, was it good for our country? No. Are these tariffs and whatnot in this tariff battle? Is it good for our country? No, I don't believe so. But he's doing what's right for the United States.
How is blanket
And
25 tariffs going to help the United States when they're the ones that pay the tariffs?
Okay, so what is the GDP of Canada versus?
I can get into an economics and tariff conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to do that here, but maybe on debate on Friday. If you guys are interested, this would be a great topic for a Friday debate, and that's when we have our debate times.
I was just trying to answer your question though about
it's a shorter answer. Go ahead.
Well, it's not a short answer. That's a big question about annexing a country. So what I was saying, I believe Trump was doing what he believes is best for his people. Okay, does that put pressure on us? Are we now going to feel that? Absolutely. You know why we're going to feel that? Because we're weak. We've allowed ourselves as
and that sounds like PP rhetoric. That's a PP talking about.
Truth.
We're weak. We're broken. Canada is falling apart. That's not the case.
I know you don't want. I know you.
It's not that I don't want to believe it. It's that it's just not true. I'm sorry. Let's give I can
demonstrate how it is.
Just got a chance. He's got his hand up, and he looks like he's dying to say something.
Oh, you just kind of shot me down and didn't let me answer back.
Okay,
I'm going to demonstrate how I'm in fact right. So,
Scooter, I'm going to help you on this one. Okay, give me a second.
I don't actually need help.
I know.
I was just said that it was a PP talking point when it's not. It's a fact.
They're not listening to you. Let me try to do a different angle. Okay.
Well, if I could actually finish my worldview.
Who sold out Canada the first?
Pardon me?
What leader of Canada sold out Canada when it comes to selling our resources out in the world first? I'll give you a hint. He's a conservative.
I was thinking Mulrooney, but I could be wrong.
There you go. Mulrooney. There we go. Okay, so Mulrooney. And every leader since then has so dominated the Canadian economy on the United States, so they would not allow our resources to be sold to anything else. Asia, Russia, UK, European Union, they sold a majority to the States. Why? Because they were lazy. It's really easy. You have a massive consumer south of the border. All right? Mm-hmm. So they create laws so that the U.S. wins all the contracts to get more of our resources to go to the States. So we're talking now 4 decades of leaders not worrying about Canadians because it's really easy to sell our resources to the States. Now you have someone in control of the friggin' White House goes, wait, why are we buying your resources? We can own it. Logically, it's not a big jump.
Well, let me just cut in. You're right. Logically, maybe that makes sense, but we are allies and we are a democracy, and wanting to take over another country is not how you treat your allies.
That's just feelings.
No, it's not feelings. That is fact. Either we're allies or we're not.
That's feelings. Because as a business, I will take over corporations that work with me, that can align with me, and make me stronger.
But as a business, is it smart to piss off 90% of the people you want to work with?
It doesn't matter if you're the most attractive business out there.
Government is business. It really is.
They're the biggest economy in the world, so everybody wants to partake in it. So it doesn't matter how much he pisses people off.
They were the biggest economy in the world. I have a feeling that's going to be crashing sometime soon. We'll see.
Unfortunately, they also have the biggest military.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
don't think they have the biggest military. I think China is actually a bigger military, but they're very big. I'm not arguing that.
What I'm saying is, I do not want to see that war happen. Like I'm saying right now, I do not want to see that conflict happen at all. I never want to see that in my lifetime or my children's life. Okay? So let's make decisions that keeps everybody happy so that whole chaos does not happen again.
We've been living off of America for the last 50 years, basically.
I disagree with that. I don't. We've had a partnership that works for us for the last 50 years. We have not been stealing from America. That's a Republican talking point.
No, it's not. Our military has 30,000 full-time members, and we're the second biggest landmass. We can't protect our north. That's
And
not.
we didn't
These are
have
not
to, though.
talking
We didn't
points.
have to until now. Now we have to,
Well, of
and
course
maybe
didn't
we need
have
to look
because
at
we have
that.
the
But
United States.
the United States is the threat.
Obama and Biden both bolstered the Northern military and the Navy to protect Canada's border. This isn't a Trump thing. This is
just because you don't like the answer doesn't mean it's a talking point. We just need to diversify our exports and actually start bringing manufacturing home to Canada. We don't actually make anything here.
And he's absolutely right. Like
That's how you get powerful as a nation. We have spent more than our GDP for the last 40 years as a nation.
Understand, all we're asking is that Canada finishes the production of resources to sell outside to make money for more jobs.
Yes,
right
we're
now,
outspending.
And again, if you're
next
talking about
section.
natural resources, that goes through the Indigenous people because this is their treaty land. You may not like it, but it's true.
Okay. So how much land does the federal government own versus the
That's
Indigenous?
not even the argument, though.
Well, the federal government, as far as I know, owns everything, but there's treaties in place.
So,
Anyway,
hold on.
I don't want to, we're really diverting now, and this isn't a topic that I'm the best person to debate right now, unless someone else wants to come up. And I don't want to debate right now because I do want to get back to talking about how this particular talk is more about feelings, and we have gotten way off track, and I've allowed it because it was a really important topic. But I think that the best place to go would be to talk to Treaty Bird 6 on Monday, or if you want to debate, come on Fridays. Because we have a debate 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Fridays. And that would be the better place to do this.
I can't follow you for some reason. I don't know why.
You should be able to just click on them.
I tried. They will not allow me. I don't know why.
It's CAUS and then Scooter is the name. If you look,
I get that. I've been able to follow multiple people in the live. I cannot follow him. So try and follow me.
I do. I can add you.
Yeah, add me and then hit me up for a
there you
DM
go.
later on.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, guys. And we're going to get back to mental health if that's okay. But I do really appreciate you coming up. Okay?
Yeah, have a good day.
Have a great day. Thanks. So we're going to start talking a little bit about mental health if Treaty Bird 6 is still here, if anybody wants to come up. What I was going to ask about right now is, we got some people requesting. Just let me do this first. There we go. Accept and accept. Oops, I accepted myself. That was a mistake. I'll take myself down.
Oh, thank God those two are gone, Jana and Treaty's Bird. I just could not handle it. I want to listen to that.
I didn't want to cut off the water conversation because it's important, but we're getting way off topic.
I hear you. If I want to listen to that garbage, I will tune into MAGA's stuff because that's who they are. They're not seeing things the way we do, right? So, Treaty Bird, Treaty, I want to just say I listen to you, I follow you, and I love what you have to say. Thank you for sharing with us. And I stand for you guys, and I hope that everything works out for all of us. But wow, I can't believe how many people we have in our country that love Trump or PP.
Yeah. And they wouldn't answer the annexation, like how they felt about annexation directly, which makes me think that they're probably for it, which is not something I understand.
And they couldn't. And honestly, the one guy was talking about Carney, but he didn't. Did he bring any facts? Did he bring any receipts to the conversation? Absolutely.
I'm just going to introduce Amanda because she's new to the panel. Amanda, if you can just tell us your age.
I'm 47.
47. And did you want to add anything?
No, look, excuse me. I'm a little nervous.
That's okay.
You guys are discussing today. Can you just reiterate it?
What we were going to be, what I was trying to discuss was just our feelings about Mark Carney, just since he just won the Liberal leadership, and how we feel about Trump and his everyday threats of annexing Canada.
Well, as far as Mark Carney goes, I mean, I understand how our political system works. I know that we don't elect a leader. We elect an MP in our riding. So for me, switching the leaders is okay. I also know that they closed down the parliament because they weren't getting anywhere on the bills that they were voting for.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to close down because otherwise you're paying people for what? Nothing, basically.
And they weren't
they were also
accomplishing anything.
one of the longest sitting parties, or like
I
longest
know.
sitting parliaments. So I know that, which is good, which a lot of people don't know. I will say, because they hear these right-sided talking points. And as far as Donald Trump, always with his language, and language matters.
Oh, it
He's
does.
always saying how he's going to take the country. And even his guy there, Rubio, I think his name was, who came to Canada for NATO.
Yeah.
If you watch his video clips, he always says, I'm not going to talk about how we're going to take over Canada. He
Who
says
says that?
that
Marco Rubio. Yeah. So in other words, that's the
in his
plan.
video clip.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah, I mean, he
very
just said
good
it
point.
straight to their faces, and I think that the NATO leaders were shocked, and none of us were.
No.
We've
He
all
means it.
seen it. We've all heard it. We all see Danielle Smith in Alberta reaching over and kissing butt to the
Yep.
U.S. For Alberta oil, only because she's moving the goalpost all the time to make more money for herself. And it's a ridiculous situation that we're in, where these people who don't want to be a part of our country are the loudest ones in our country.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's and I asked that the other day, and I'll ask it again. Where are all of the freedom riders and the freedom convoy and the Canadian flags right now when we're under threat of annex from the United
You know where
States?
they are? They're telling me that, oh, we won't even know if the US takes over. We'll just wake up one day and we'll have their US dollars. Or they're telling me we'd be better off if we were with them. We wouldn't have to pay so much high prices. Also, I mean, we all know, and I'm sorry, I know there's conservative leaning people in this party or in this talking.
That's okay. There's none on that panel right now.
So, but I grew up in a conservative area, like very conservative area. I learned a lot about why people lean conservative, and for the most part, any reason why I ever heard most white males tell me in any conversation I had with them was that we don't have to give any more money to our natives.
Oh,
and
geez.
That is upsetting to me.
And it's probably true.
We're wasting money in the courts with our conservative leaders fighting against legal government documents that were drawn up. We're wasting money instead of just doing the things that we need to do in this country in order to be by our word. And so it's a big issue for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And and it's really tough with and the talk, like Trump uses I have very interesting opinion. Like, I think Trump does have some form of dementia right now, but I also think that he's a very horrible person whose policies I would never have agreed with in life, who happens to have dementia. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that gives him an excuse. It doesn't, but I think it does play into some of the unpredictability of what's going on because he's all over the place, right? But when he is fairly lucid, he says things like the artificial line that is our border. That is a dangerous thing to say because he's basically saying that it doesn't really exist. It's just a pretend line. And if he crosses it, that's okay because it's not real in the first place.
From the States, if they say, this is a dog whistle to his people. This is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. And, you know, it's ridiculous, the wording and the verbiage that's coming out of this side. Like Danielle Smith constantly now calling our drug problems in Canada cartels. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not going to
disagree
with.
Yeah.
We have
drug problems.
Issues with drugs. But calling our drug problems cartels actually opens us up to the US. And the reason why it does is because they've officially designated cartels as terrorist organizations.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yep. So then they have the right to interfere. That's what they're basically giving themselves the right to interfere.
They're installing a drug czar in our country, and they're looking to interfere in our country, and they're looking for Danielle Smith to push this verbiage of cartels so that they can come in with drones and blow shit up. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Elon Musk is not to be trusted.
No.
He's way out to lunch. I mean, look at this guy. He's just sleeping with every woman he sees, trying to repopulate the earth.
Yeah,
we've heard
he just wants babies.
Back in the old days, during the schmutzy days. Like, come on.
Wow.
And Mike is saying there are cartels in Canada. Do you have any proof of that? Like, do you have any stats on that, Mike? Any sources? And I'm not saying there aren't maybe small amounts coming in. Like, we do have a drug problem. Every country has a drug problem. Like, I'm not saying that we don't, but I don't believe that the Mexican cartels are the center of our drug problem in Canada. I just don't.
Me neither.
And the whole fentanyl thing is very frustrating because he still talks about it. And Danielle, like when Danielle Smith talks about it, and PP does it too. It makes me angry because they know for a fact that only less than 1% of the fentanyl in the United States is coming through Canada. We have much more fentanyl coming in than what's going through our border. So it's just a lie. And
it's ridiculous wording for sure.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous wording, but it's all to, undermine what we're doing and undermine our democracy and make it look like he has the right to do something about it, right? I'm just going to turn my camera, but close my door. My son's making a lot of noise. Just give me a sec.
So while you're doing that, Jana, I just wanted to bring it back a little bit to the mental health discussion because, and it's linked to this, the folks that want to be the 51st state or the folks that don't care or don't see it to be a real threat. Because and what I want to bring up is there was a creator, and I think most of us saw it, that her name is Ricky, and she said, "I'm a traitor, and this is what liberals call me now." You see that? I don't know if you saw that video, but
No,
I don't normally do this, but for some reason I engaged with her, and it was a back and forth and back and forth, and
Yep.
and she continued to tell me how she had been hated and got threatened by liberals. And
Yeah.
and then she did bring up, because I did say, so somebody that we know that is a mutual of ours did duet her video. And on that duet, I said, she makes my stomach churn. So she quoted me on this. Okay. And I walked it back. I said, "I'm sorry. You know what? I shouldn't have said that. Your words made my stomach churn.
Sure.
Not you. That wasn't, and I apologize." But this was after a bunch of banter. But this has been in my brain now for since this started. Because I feel like if the folks that we're trying to reach feel like we're threatening them and we're mean and hateful,
Yeah.
how are we going to change that? Like, I don't want us to be that, because that's how we see them. And so I'm feeling like when I sit back and look at the conversation, we're all scared.
Yeah.
We're all scared.
We are.
And so I'm struggling though, because I'm also, that fear triggers anger in us because we're scared for our future generations, for our children. When we get angry at these people that we see to be this direct threat, right? And to me, it's people that vote for Pierre Poilievre or Danielle Smith. Those are the direct threats to me right now.
Yeah.
So I just want to share, because this has been weighing on me and my conscience, and I don't want to be that person that's mean or hateful or makes somebody else feel threatened. I did, this person's body language, everything was very, not like how we present ourselves. But I guess that's being judgmental too. So
May I just say one thing though?
Please,
I think that we do need to stand up though. I mean, we need to use the best language we can. I mean, I use my swear words every once in a while, but we have to try and use the best language we can with other people. But we do need to stand up, because standing up shows other people that we're here with them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of our problems is liberals. I'm just going to say this quickly, and I want to touch on something Aurora Sue said in chat. This threat to Canada has damaged my mental health. We're all feeling that, man. I'm so sorry, Aurora. Like, that is going on for a lot of people. It's going on for me. I'm not, I'm not going to lie.
Too.
Pardon me?
And
yeah, go ahead, Judy.
Her kids too.
Her kids too. And, and I think that's why I wanted to bring this up to what I was experiencing, because I feel this sense of community here and this safe space to talk about these things, because our mental health is suffering from what's going on, and we're probably not behaving in our best either all the time, right? But I'm wondering, how do we get those messages apart? Or I actually then remember Frontline posted another video from a gentleman who studies this kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I forget the name, and was saying just to leave those conversations and focus on our message more. And
Right.
that's so hard some days, though. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if anybody in the room has some tips on how you might deal with these types of confrontational, goings-ons in social
That's very
media.
powerful,
Yeah,
actually.
may
That's
I
very
I
add
think,
powerful.
something?
go
Can I
ahead.
add something, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Trudy, listening to you, yes, there's a lot of negative rhetoric going on, and and it does affect our mental health. One thing I wanted to share is I've been watching a lot of what they call the dreaming ladies.
Mm-hmm.
So they're energy healers, psychics, that kind of thing. And one thing, I really like the ethical psychic. She comes on and she tells us stories in an indigenous way, but actually, if you really listen, she's talking about PP, Trump, and all that. I love her absolutely. But one thing that they've been saying is we need to change our energy rather than having our energy or the thought of fear, because that's what they want. They want the fear. We
Yeah.
have the energy of peace inside us. That's what we're going to portray. And eventually, that's what's going to come back. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, we can change other people's energy the same way.
Right.
But and
They
I've
found that
gotten caught,
medically as well. Sorry to
right?
interject. They found that
Yeah,
medically as well, that the off
right.
switch for anxiety is to create. So, what I've been focusing most of my energy on is creating information for people to
Yeah.
learn things that I think that they should know in order to make informed decisions going forward.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's one of the reasons I started posting, actually, Amanda, was because I was looking for how to cope with all of the misinformation, all of the um, propaganda coming from the right, everything like that. So after the first post I ever did was probably with my face anyway, was November or December of this year, and that was what really got me doing it. Was that I can't sit back and watch without saying something anymore, because I feel like our voices are being there are not enough of our voices out there, and with all the bots and all of the um, interference coming from the conservative side, we need to do something about that now. And I'm not saying everybody has to post. I'm just saying that's how I chose to help deal with the anxiety and stress that I was feeling.
It's
But there,
putting real people to faces. Do you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? We're creating a community across all directions and lines here. And we're putting those faces with our ideologies, and it's helping us to feel more grounded, I feel.
mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
And I think self-care, like
Uh,
I've talked about this too, we all need to really watch our self-care right now. Be kind to yourself. If
yes.
self-compassion is something a lot of people don't understand. We're great at being compassionate. I find a lot of people on the left are great at being compassionate for everybody but themselves, right? We worry about all kinds of different communities, like, Indigenous communities, LGBTQ, 2S plus, disabilities, mental health, and, racial, racism, and all of these issues. And that's good. And we should, but we don't give ourselves grace when we have a bad day or when we're feeling angry or frustrated. We tend to be hard on ourselves. So it's just really important to take care of yourself and forgive yourself. Like I've had times when I've posted it, like I have a habit now where I try not to post if I'm angry, because I've had a few times where I've posted and then taken it down and gone, that was too far, or just not happy with how I was expressing myself. So now I give myself at least 30 minutes after something triggers me before I will post. So that's one way that I deal with it. But what do I do
think
with that anger?
shame is real for all of us. Sorry. I think
Yes.
shame is real for all of us. And getting past that shame is a big part of having your voice out there for others to hear. You have to be able to put that aside and say, I can make mistakes.
Exactly.
I'm not a bot. But also, ladies, use some AI technology these days, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, it's really helpful. You can find a lot of information really fast about different things and different questions that you have before you post your videos. You can find sources, you can read sources. and it links them right there, which is fantastic. So I really love AI technology, and I like the fact that it's coming now from different countries because they're competing with each other, which is giving us a more stable market in the way of that we don't have to worry as much about our information. Like if we want to go one direction, we can, or if we want to go the other, we can. And so but I do feel that shame is the biggest indicator or the biggest thing that affects us, that makes us like meek and not want to say anything in the injustices,
I invited a couple people back, so I'm just going to give Pizza first. Pizza, if you want to just tell us your age, and did you want to add something?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me up, and thank you for hosting this live.
No problem.
I think there needs to be a lot more Canadian podcasts and TikTok lives here, because it's dominated by U.S. debate talk, which is fun, but it's great to have some great Canadian voices. Sorry, I'm 34.
Yeah.
I am a Liberal. I actually registered as a Liberal specifically to vote for Mark Carney.
Awesome.
I think that he will bridge the gap between Liberals and Conservatives. I think that's kind of his purpose in a way.
I think he's quite the centrist. Like he is left, but he's left center, if that makes sense. And I think right now that may be a good thing for us.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because if the NDP had this way, sure, I would vote for them, but they just don't, and I don't want to split the vote. And I think the biggest thing for me is I think we need to just want to point out that we should pick our battles. If we look at the U.S. Election as any indication, don't sit out, and also don't vote third party. Like I believe, like I get it. It's like I understand, like your convictions are very important, and I say you are just anyone listening.
Yeah, to all the lefties listening.
It's more do a greater good for the greatest amount of people, and
and smart voting. There's a website, smartvoting.ca, which is a great one. I think it's JB that's doing that, if I'm not wrong.
JB Policell.
Yeah, and this is a great way to look at whether it's Liberal or NDP in your area, because some areas don't have strong Liberal candidates. Like right now in my riding, for example, there is no Liberal candidate yet. So there's an NDP, and then there's the UCP that won the seat last time. But I don't even have a Liberal candidate yet. And I'm not saying I won't vote Liberal, but who is it?
Sorry, I was saying that that's a great resource by JB. I went on there. The only thing that I found is that you need to press just the Canada button on it, because when I tried to press the other buttons below, it didn't take me to the area that I specifically wanted to go. So that was the only thing that I saw on there. But I did go through alphabetically, find my writing, and then it gave me a strategic vote for my area, which makes a lot of sense for here.
Yeah, because there's no point in voting Liberal if they have zero chance in your riding. It's still better to vote NDP. So it's like if I could vote for Carney, I would, but odds are I'm going to be voting NDP in my riding. I don't know yet.
You do
what
you gotta do. You can do, right? That's
and then I'm just doing what I think is best, like the best chance for my riding not to be conservative.
Other thing that prompted me to say this is that some people are pointing to one of Carney's, I think, potential cabinet members being pro-Israel or something like that. And despite the fact that might be a problem for someone, it's not a reason not to vote for him or that party. You can still be an advocate.
It's a cabinet minister in charge of immigration. That is the pro-Israel that I've heard of today. Now that's news coming over from India because my husband's currently there. But that's the news that I'm hearing.
I would just say, just don't let that be the reason you don't, because that's exactly, again, what happened in the States.
One issue votes. Like you got to look at the big picture and all of the issues. And what the leader is going to do with it.
This news? I don't know if anyone's confirmed that news, but
let's just introduce our other Aurora. Hi, Aurora. How are you doing today? Can you just tell us your age?
Sure. My name's Suzanne. My age is 58 now.
58. Okay. So, and you sound like you're having a rough time. A lot of us are too. I'm so sorry.
I am. I have two daughters. I grew up in a really conservative household. But I would have said all along I was more liberal, just with, we're a family that really paid attention to current events. But I wanted to say for those who are younger that, in my 20s and 30s, a conservative vote wasn't the same as what it would be now.
Agreed.
Back then, Canada really did stand strong on the conservative meant fiscal conservative, but social liberal.
Yeah.
And that changed probably around the time of Harper, reform,
Harper's
all that
second
kind of
term for
stuff.
sure. Yeah.
Can I
And
actually
at that
just
time,
interject one fact
sure.
about that, though? A conservative government has never paid down the deficit, not a
Oh.
single time in government.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's
And
an
so I think
honest
that's,
fact.
I think
Yeah.
that's a
So
problem
fiscally, they're
as
not the
well.
best. Yeah.
I agree at 100%. But I think for me, at least I felt, if I felt, at least I felt that the social side would still be, that I kind of took that as a standard. And then all of a sudden my world blew apart. I have 2 girls now.
Yeah.
And I had 2 girls, and then this started changing, and then what happened in the South, and I married a very 100% liberal man.
Yeah.
And just through informing myself, and now I am 100%. I would not, I will campaign, I will do whatever I can
Me
not
too.
to have a conservative in party. And it's because of that, it's because of the social side. The thing is with Trudeau, and I know he overstayed his welcome. I know he had things that might not have been the best idea, but I was proud of myself as a Canadian.
Me too.
I was proud of all those social things. I was proud of standing up in a theater when we had the land acknowledgements, because we have never done anything like that to recognize. And frankly, in my 20s and 30s, did I think at all about Indigenous people and what they'd been through? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
But now I know about that. I donate to water programs, for clean water up north and all that kind of stuff. And that's thanks to the Liberal government.
Yeah.
And I don't want to turn back the clock. And that's what I see it happening. And I fear for my daughters.
I would worry if I have daughters. I have sons myself, but I worry about women's rights. I really do.
Yeah.
And I worry that like PP, all of his party, every single member of the CPC party is against or is anti-abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And
just the way they talk about women. I mean, when you are coming either up against a Maple Mega or, it's just all so ugly. And
it's interesting for you.
And I'll say that those are not conservatives. Politics. Those people are far right.
Yeah.
Like far right. Not even like, look,
no.
Those last 2 guys who were on here, they were not conservatives. They were just far right fundamentalist nationalists.
Yeah.
Do you know how many random men I have in my inbox right now just offering money to me?
Me too.
To
and I mean, I'm 53 or 52.
Baby, sugar mama, whatever. I've got literally hundreds. I haven't deleted any of them, and I show my husband all the time because it's just freaking ridiculous. I'm sorry, but this is no better than a dick pic, to be honest. So stop sending women these sugar baby, sugar mama, can I paint your picture things.
Oh,
it's just
ridiculous.
A good one. And I mean, most of them are probably bots, but it's just like, it's such a deterrent for women to want to even speak up. And and they're doing it on purpose. You know what I'm saying? They want to get you involved with whatever they're doing and throw you off your path.
And it's interesting that the rise of this far right that I think began with Trump, and then all the nutsos that were far right who knew they couldn't speak up then felt they could. But it not only has it been a rise in racism and nationalism, but it's also been a rise against women. There's a lot more people saying things that they wouldn't have had the, so to speak, balls to say before now.
It gets me all prickly whenever the word traditional comes up now.
Yeah.
Like You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Anytime traditional marriage, traditional wives, traditional values. We're talking about the 1940s or 50s is my guess. And I don't want to go back to that.
No.
Why would we? Like the only people that
No,
were
we
benefiting
had
from the
no rights.
1940s and 50s were YT men.
Yeah,
Like why?
we weren't allowed to have credit cards.
I know.
We weren't allowed to. I mean,
Not till the
I don't know if
70s, I think.
people.
Couldn't own
Property.
businesses.
Yeah,
Couldn't
it was
open
pretty
bank
darn
accounts
strict, and
for most part.
I also my I said my family was conservative, but I was also my parents were part of a it's a was a Christian
Hmm.
cult basically.
Hmm.
It's been profiled on the news, but they got out, thank goodness, and my
Yeah.
family got out. But I think there's a lot of that still in my history that makes it so that all that kind of ultra Christian right, and I'm not anti-Christian at all.
It's not about
You know,
Christianity. It's about what they've
it's
turned
not that. It's
Christianity
just
into.
about the. It's
It's like a
about using
nationalism.
that as a hammer,
Yeah.
and that's just so wrong. And that's so much of what I mean. I was a child, but so much of what I remembered about being in that cult was using it as a hammer. It was all about fear. It was all about submission. And
And
yeah,
Yeah,
submitting,
all
Christian
like,
over the
and
place.
Christianity is
unfortunately,
not the same as Christian nationalism. Those are two different things. And that's what they're trying to push. They're not like pushing Christianity, they're pushing like antiquated Christian notions. Like
Yes.
exactly, like the Christianity they use is right wing is not really what Jesus said. Like
No,
it's
and
never
I
about
say that
Jesus.
all the
They go,
time.
yeah. It's I
Um,
love Jesus. I love world religions, so I'm not
yeah, me too.
religious
I
in a
studied it.
specific. Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
Jesus is awesome. I've read the New Testament many times. I've written papers on
Hmm.
it. I've taken university courses in Christian theology
Yeah.
just because I find it fascinating.
yeah.
Well, what they're pushing is
It's not
the
Christian.
is not Christian. It is what men made of Christianity to exude power over
Exactly. It's the
all kinds of
patriarchy.
people.
It's a
I
Yeah, white
patriarchal, and they
supremacy.
use the religion. They aren't doing it because of the religion. They know what they want, and they're using the religion to get what they
Yes.
want. To say
That's why people
if you
like
don't believe us,
Hero
you're
and
not
Charlie Kirk
godly.
are so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that whole idea that if you're not on their side, then you're not um, godly enough. You're not Christian enough, or you're not, you know what I mean? Like you're not good enough in some way. And that
Mm-hmm.
is,
Sorry, do
and
you
it's that
mind
kind
if
of
we hear
pressure.
just what Pizza has to say for 1 second?
Go
Because
ahead, Pizza.
I want to hear a male's perspective on
Yeah.
how he was raised and what he learned in regards to religion and nationalism, etc.
Are you okay with answering that, Pizza?
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat that? My apologies.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
just heard you interjecting there about wanting to speak on your beliefs or what you've seen around you in regards to religion and nationalism. I'd like to hear your view.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the big thing is like I'm taking a lot of cues again from the U.S. election and this push towards like this whole like anti-woke rhetoric that people say, woke mind virus, but also the rise of these kind of political pundits like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, who are trying so hard to, and Jordan Peterson, you're trying to push an appeal to maybe young men, 18 to 25, for these kind of very like antiquated kind of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, and I think it's the problem, I think, in the States is because education is very expensive, and in many cases here as well, but we're a little bit better off, is they're trying to supplement the Bible for textbooks and education. They're basically offering young men this kind of magic pill to avoid having to learn. And that's the thing that I think, like, if we're, as this election comes closer, because, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, I'll say, I don't want to dox myself, but government stuff, I'll say that.
Okay.
The biggest weapon in defense we have really is arming ourselves with knowledge,
Yeah.
education, and dispelling misinformation. Like, so, like, understand what each party's platforms are, understand who PP is, understand who Carney is, understand what they want. Not like, because PP is very good at just pushing slogans. That's all he does. Like,
Yep.
what's good is that all he had was the carbon tax as a talking point, and now he doesn't.
Yeah, and you see it in the polls. Like the Liberals are ahead in the polls now for the first time in forever. And we kind of have PP to thank for that, because he ran a campaign based on like one issue. He's been campaigning for 2 years, which I don't understand how we get to do that in Canada, but that's a whole other topic. But
I'm pretty
axe
sure
the
he was
tax,
going on
axe the tax.
ChatGPT. Sorry. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure he was going on ChatGPT. He was typing in what would Trump say in Canadian language. And it was spitting out some sort of ideas for him that he was going, oh, yeah, I can use that. And it's not based in fact, it's based in propaganda. And if you look back in the textbooks, in the history books about what the Schmotzies did, they did the same things. It was propaganda everywhere. It was taking over the schools and indoctrinating propaganda. It was turning us against them in every avenue. That's what they did.
So many parallels. Like if you look at who they went after first, it was the trans community, believe it or not. They had a very vibrant trans community in Germany at the time. And that was the first, they went after the trans community, then they went after the disabled, including, and you hear them talking in the States right now about mentally ill people, and how they talk about people with mental illness is extremely stigmatizing, implying that they're inherently violent.
One quick thing, sorry. One quick thing. If anybody has a chance, look up information about Trump's uncle, I believe it is, that came to visit him to talk about his disabled son, and see what he says that Trump said to him about his disabled son. And you'll be shocked. And it's the true character of a man. Do you know what I mean? His family is even saying, this is the way he is, and we need to believe it.
Exactly. When someone tells you who they are, and he tells us who he is all the time, believe it.
Yeah, everything he's doing are things that he ran on. He ran on tariffs. That he wasn't shy about it. He said, I'm going to do this thing. And all people said was he's not going to do it.
And he did.
So,
well, he hasn't yet, but I don't even know if he will or not, because I feel like the whole tariff thing it's like there's different reasons for doing it, but one of them is honestly to terrorize us. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. Keep us guessing.
But here's the problem with that is that, and you're right, but the problem is that the world reacted, right? Like the world markets have reacted. People's 401ks have dropped. People in all around the world have lost their jobs because of this.
What I wish, sorry if I'm interrupting, but what I wish what I see on TikTok with people from around the world, really citizens, just individuals, really speaking up for Canada and saying, that. I haven't seen a lot come from leaders, because I think leaders of countries are just so terrified to have his evil eye turned on them that they don't want to get into it too much. But I wish I would hear more on American or world news, because I saw something on BBC Newsnight that was really awful. It was a discussion with the man who has, it was a father who's, I can't remember her name, Justine. She was trying to get across the border in the West Coast, and she was trying to enter Canada, and she said something about wanting to work, which of course, you need visas for that. And so she was refused entry. So she ended up back in the US, and she went into ICE detention. So he was talking about his daughter, and this is the UK, and how scared he is for her, and they can't get in touch with her. But the journalist said, do you think that the disagreements right now between Canada and the US and the tariff arguments are affecting what's happening with your daughter? And he said, well, I think so, because, and I thought, don't bring Canada into this. This is ICE, and we didn't ask for this. And I wish they would spend less time talking just about the tariffs and what exactly the tariffs are for. Because we've been through tariff wars before, and we've managed them. They've been negotiated. But when you add it on top of the threat to our sovereignty, it becomes an entirely different thing. And they're not talking about that. They're talking about, Canada's booing our national anthem. The reason why is not tariffs. The reason why is because you're threatening our sovereignty.
100%.
Yeah,
And it's just economically
and if we're really booing Trump, like Trump and anybody who voted for him is who we're booing. If you didn't vote for Trump, we're not booing you. We feel for you.
Yeah.
You know,
Although
like
I would have to say, because somebody was saying that, there's so many people on TikTok in the comments, oh, we're not all like that. We're so sorry. And, we agree with you.
Mhm.
And I responded to them to say, and I said, thank you. That's great. But I do also want to put the spotlight on the amount of people who did not vote in the
yeah, if
American
you didn't vote
election.
at all and you could, that puts you in the
Exactly.
same. You may as well have
And
voted for Trump.
you knew
Yep.
what was coming. You knew what was
Agreed.
coming. And if you didn't take the time to vote, then I'm putting you in there with the Trump people in some ways, because it could have been stopped. And
Yeah,
that's
and
why we
Bury
have
your
to
head
make
in
sure it
sand.
doesn't happen here.
And
It's
we have
true.
a problem with apathy in Canada. Look at the Ontario election. It was.
Yeah.
I know the weather was bad, but still, the turnout was abysmal. And you can always vote in advance
My husband
polls.
voted in advance, but
Yeah.
it was bad.
This is
My
kind of off
83-year-old
topic,
dad
but
got out
that's
and
why
voted in Ontario. So I don't understand the excuses for not voting, you know?
I believe it should be mandatory, but that's
Me
just
too.
me. And maybe that's a little too far left for some, but I think it
It's
should be
Australia
mandatory.
who
We
isn't.
should all
Australia
learn,
is
we
not
should all
that
vote.
far left, but they have it. It's mandatory in
Mandatory.
Australia.
Yeah. And
You
you
should
like
have to
look,
vote.
you can even even if it's mandatory, you can technically just spoil your vote, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Or
like
vote right in a ballot or
I agree with it.
Or not vote and pay the $20, and then it goes towards whatever we need it to go towards in the government.
I did that one year. I didn't want to spoil my vote because I heard that it wasn't registered. It's just a spoiled vote. It just goes into nowhere. But if you actually go and stand in front of them at the polling station and say, I want to register this as a non-vote, they realize that you're not happy with anything. And I did that in the Ontario election when we had to vote between Doug Ford and Kathleen Wynne, because I couldn't figure out what to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'm just the Ontario election scared me because not only did Doug Ford win, but more to the point, not enough people voted. What was the turnout? It was very bad.
It was
I don't.
very low.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but it was record low.
With slogans.
I'd like to believe that this election, the federal election, will ignite a fire under people. Yeah, I know the turnout for Ontario, maybe not so much, but I don't know. I mean, I think with the whole tariff situation and this, I have more hope, and I think having Carney come in, kind of this late in the game in a way, I think it has piqued interest. Because he's not like a traditional politician, and he's almost like what Trump claims to be, because he's just all he's ever done is just work in finance and business and economics. So I think the appeal might.
I'm hoping so. I think also there's an advantage of, because I think at one point Polyev wanted a vote very quickly, and you don't hear that. And I think it's because the advantage is now on the Liberal side because of all this Trump stuff.
Yeah.
And Pierre has been very clear that he wants Trump-style politics in Canada. So this is killing him. And if it waited until October or so, maybe some of the terrorist stuff would have died down.
Yeah.
And people forget this feeling. So the joy I get in Canadian politics is thinking how much he's pacing up and down, just in tears about what might be happening to him. I don't know if it would.
And Carney did take away his whole axe the tax, which I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did that because if that's going to be a bit like it was a non-issue to me, honestly. I didn't think the carbon tax was a bad thing. I was pretty neutral on it.
People didn't know what it was. They just used it as a talking point. Yeah.
I get more money. I got more money back than I probably ever paid out.
Yeah, exactly. That was the whole point of it, is that you get the rebate. So, but people just didn't really get it.
I just want to answer Nick quickly. Vote splitting is a concern when you have two parties on the same side, like we have Liberal and NDP that are both left. That people are going to split the vote, whereas in the right is only one party. Does that make sense? So vote splitting is when you're splitting and we end up with a conservative government because half of the lefties voted Liberal and half of the lefties voted NDP. So neither party gets to win, even though together they would have more than enough votes to win the election. And I'm leaving out other parties, but I'm just trying to be, explain what vote splitting is.
Kind of like how the Hillary Trump thing, when people voted for Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
that
People
kind
voting
of
for
thing,
Bernie.
or even RFK in the U.S. election, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So what we need to do on the left is really pay attention to who, whether it's an NDP or a Liberal in our riding, is going to win, and vote perhaps that way, or pick. It's a tough one. I think smartvoting.ca is a really good site to look at what the trend is in your area, because even if strategic voting doesn't work, anti-progressive, I disagree. Actually, I think it can work, but we'll see. I mean, it's worth a try. It's
Both my
better.
daughters are NDP voters, and they are both watching their ridings, and they will switch their vote to Liberal
Yeah,
if
because
they
I'm
have
I'm
to.
all I'm all behind Carney, but if NDP, and because I'm in Alberta, there is a better chance that the NDP might have a shot.
Yeah,
I might
absolutely.
end up voting NDP, and it doesn't mean I'm not for Carney. It just means that I would rather have an NDP than a Conservative win my
Yeah.
riding.
I think something to keep in mind also is like the people that you'll, and I'm not even saying this like in a way like I know everything. The problem is I've lived on this app for a very long time. I was entrenched into the U.S. politics.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot leading up to the election. You're gonna get a lot of agitators, lots of people pretending to be people who they are not.
Yeah.
People who are going to purposely pretend to be apathetic to and try to dissuade people from not voting whatsoever.
Well, there's no point. I've seen a lot of "what's the point? PP's going to win anyway" kind of posts.
Those kind of things. They'll be like very anti-establishment. They'll be pushing Russian propaganda. Just be prepared for all of that.
Yep.
Yeah. And Niku says that so far the Green has the best chance of winning against the Conservatives. Then honestly, if that was my area, I'd probably vote Green. If that was if they had the best chance of winning. But it's just a strategy. I don't know. It has worked in other countries, but I can't off the top of my head remember which one somebody used as an example recently. Somewhere in Europe, but I don't remember the country exactly. But
well, and if we can't stop him from winning, which I'm really hoping, I'm positive. At least we got to get him a minority where we can.
So he can't sell us out.
But I'm aiming for winning.
I'm all for a minority government.
I think
it does get things done for the people usually, so I'm for that.
And I would say, like, if I were to venture a guess based on polls and everything else right now, we're going to win a Liberal minority. But we'll see. That could change. That could change to a majority.
Yeah.
Some people argue that a majority is not a good idea anyway. I don't know. Like we've had so many years of stalemate with PP and the Conservatives that I don't know that maybe we need a majority government to get through this. But I'll take a Liberal minority over a PC or a CPC win any day. So
Can I ask somebody to see if they can predict the future for me? Because one of the things I've thought is hopefully we win. Hopefully the Liberals or a minority wins. The Conservatives are going to lose their ever-loving minds.
Yeah.
And will this finally have them have a referendum and an election of somebody that is not a panderer to the far right?
We can hope, but I don't know.
They'll never win, or they will never be Canada's party.
There are people that are in the camp that believe Doug Ford is their golden boy at some point. But there's a few things, like I don't like Doug Ford personally, but I do appreciate that he's managed this better than Danielle Smith. Okay.
Like he met with Lutnick just the other day in the U.S. Like he was he works for Trump, one of the advisors. Talked to them about tariffs and everything. So he's going back next week. So there's a lot of pressure on him to perform, and I hope he does. And so far, yeah, he's definitely doing a better job than Danielle Smith for sure. I mean, she's supposed to meet with like Ben Shapiro.
I know. And have you looked at PragoU? Like where she's presenting? It is.
Yeah.
It is. I've looked at their website. I haven't looked at all of it. Like there's too much there to look at all of it. But they're targeting children.
Yeah.
Like they have videos for kids, and they are misinformation videos a lot of the time. Like just it's their and anti-LGBTQ videos. They've got anti-racism kind of videos. Like that, it's not that big of a deal kind of idea, and They're a far right fascist Christian organization, and that's where
Yep.
Danielle Smith is going to do a talk with Ben Shapiro, and I'm Albertan, so I'm that much more disgusted by the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Like, she should not be mingling with that right now. They are trying to annex us. That is
Exactly.
the people that are trying to take our country, and she's going there to speak to them.
100%.
Like,
Yep. To
it's,
I
pander
hope
to
that
them.
that pushes like Albertans away from her, because
I
I like
think
to
so.
think that they have enough pride and understand that like this is a country that's trying to annex us and really cripple us economically, and you're trying to like get favor from them or something.
But
So
I think, like, I'll talk quickly. I got a call about a survey. I don't know if any of you saw my video on that, but I got a call about a survey on yesterday afternoon, I believe it was. And it was somebody asking if I would vote. Like, I don't remember all the questions. It was one of those like 100-question kind of things. But in the very beginning, it was, what is your opinion on how good Danielle Smith is doing good for Alberta kind of thing? And I'm like, no. And who would you support? And I'm like, well, right now, Nenshi, because there's nobody else. There's no Liberal candidate for me to even look at that I know of. And then at the end, though, this is what really disturbed me, but it was all Alberta questions. That's the point. And at the end, they asked, how do you feel about Canada becoming the 51st state? And I'm like, are you freaking serious? Absolutely not. Like, no. And then the next question was, how about Alberta separating and becoming part of the United States? And I'm like, who is doing, and that's, I'm like, who is the survey for? And they wouldn't tell me. They said they don't have to disclose. But it's got to be it's an Alberta
Yes,
survey for
that's
sure. It was Alberta
Alberta.
slanted. And I think it's probably Danielle Smith's party.
Danielle
Fishing.
Smith and Alberta Oil.
Yeah, fishing to see if the UPC, seeing if they can, if it's okay to jump on the Trump bandwagon, basically.
it's wild.
And it was really disturbing. I was really like shaken up after it because I'm like, wow, like this is so serious. Like she's even polling to find out if she can push us. And I do not want to be an American. I will move before I become an American. Like,
Yeah, why would we want to give up our socialized healthcare, and why would we want our education rates to drop? That seems silly to me.
It's interesting how she forgets about the treaty obligations that Alberta has with First Nations. And,
never came up.
And also there's like Métis settlements in Alberta, but in full disclosure and fairness, Métis settlements are provincial crown land.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just, did you see my video on the letters from Treaty 6 chiefs?
Yes.
They don't want to take part in anything to do with this, so that's a good thing.
Very good.
I'm also in Treaty 6 territory right now.
Yeah.
Me too.
Me too. We're all Treaty 6. Well, the three of us. But I found that just so disturbing because I felt like she was fishing for an agenda. And the latest polling on this showed that 90% of Canadians do not want to be part of the United States, which is good. But of the 10%, 1 in 5 of them was a conservative. Mm-hmm. And almost virtually none were Liberal. There were some, but it was such a minuscule amount were Liberal or NDP. The others were probably
give
people
up your cultural identity, or
I don't know. Yeah, and I don't understand. Like, who would want that? Like, what are and the benefits that I've heard from people are, I can travel without. How do you know that? What does annexing ever mean? Even mean? How do you know that you can go and live in Florida if you want now?
People?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, but people are going to H&R Block to do their taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even looking at the tax forms.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're paying. They just see money going in, money, check coming maybe. And
Trump is telling them. Yeah, they're telling them that the taxes will be lower.
And they're believing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just astonishing to me that these people are not looking at their own tax forms.
Yeah, and not only will your taxes not be necessarily lower, you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose your Canada pension plan. You're going to lose an unemployment or employment insurance benefits. You're going to lose your health care. That's a huge one. Like, I've had to have like 3 minor surgeries in the past, 10 years. I would be in huge medical debt if that was the case.
I think there's an American on here, Rob Way. He's talking a lot about, we don't want it, or Americans don't want Canada, and we just want free trade. And I'd like to speak to that because we are a tiny economy next to a gigantic economy. So as a tiny country, it would be no difference if it was the US that was the tiny country and Canada was the huge one. In order for our small economy to survive, we need tariffs to protect what we make inside of Canada so that we can still have a functioning economy. If we didn't have that, what Trump is wanting right now would happen. And that is what it is. It's not anti-fair trade. You have had a very good relationship in trade with a very small country rich in resources, and it has worked for many, many years. And we give you discounts on all our amazing resources so that you can buy them cheaply and make your products, and it has worked. So I think a lot of Americans need to learn so much more about tariffs and the relationship of those between the two countries.
Well, I mean, Trump supporters need to learn it. I think the Democrats probably have a good idea.
Yeah. I don't even think Trump still understands what a tariff is. So he seems to be very confused because he thinks putting tariffs on Canada is going to benefit the American people. And that's just not so, because it's going to raise their prices to 25%.
Look,
He thinks he's playing a game
it's
of
been
risk.
working, Rob. It's been working for Canada and the US for decades.
Trump imposed the tariffs in his first term, and then he put them on China, on agriculture, and then China retaliated, and then the U.S. farmers went bankrupt, and then they had to be bailed out for like $13 billion because soybean farmers lost their farms.
Yeah.
Tariffs don't work.
Well,
I mean,
and what he's doing is dangerous. Like, you got food in the United States rotting on the vines because the workers are too afraid to go out and pick because they might get picked up by ICE. You know,
DC, why are our discounted products to the U.S. Nonsense? Can you provide some facts on that?
Who's saying that? Which one?
DC, he's got a Canada flag by his name. I believe he must be probably
DC,
a far right.
Yeah. They import 60% off of our oil reserves.
And we have dedicated pipelines that go run through like the U.S. I mean, it's a good working relationship.
We need each other. But can we do without you? We will if we have to. We're gonna. Trudeau's already been doing or has done a great job of reaching out to the EU and China and other and Mexico and other potential trade partners. We've also got Scandinavia that we could look at. And
DC,
frankly, we're ready to do without. We're ready to do without if we have to. If I
DC, can you tell us why our trade isn't fair? Give us some stats.
One thing. Our men live and die in our mines and on our own oil fields, not just men, women too. Know a lot of brave, tough women out there. So props to you. But they live and die in our oil fields and our mines and in our lumber mills. And we need to think of them.
And funny, DC, need to get together, go to the table together and discuss how to work together. Well, in 2020, we did that with Trump, and he signed the agreement, and he said it was the best agreement ever because that's the way he talks. He's made the best deal ever, and then now he's ripping it up and saying, whoever made these tariffs are worse.
The USMCA was like he signed it, and he violated it because he claims that the F drug is a problem, like a national security risk, and it's not because none of it comes from us.
Well, not none, but
right?
1%.
A small portion. Yeah,
we get more in from the States, sadly.
Yeah,
much more. Yeah, the problem is the fentanyl coming into Canada from the States, not the other way around.
Absolutely. So, and it was weird because not to mention, like, we dedicated, I think, $1 billion to border security on that basis because he said this. And he still disagreed with it. So it doesn't really make that much sense.
Facts don't matter to him.
And
that's the problem.
Borders are, immigration or not, borders are, sorry.
Well, and that's frustrating with Danielle Smith. Again, like, let's ramp up the border and do what Trump wants. He's raising non-issues. Like, it's very frustrating that we're putting Alberta money into like helicopters and more armed people at the border when it's not the problem. And I doubt there's a flood of
Mhm.
Canadians trying to get into the United States right now, too. Or even immigrants that are in Canada that want to be in the States. If I was an immigrant, I wouldn't be heading towards the United States right now. So is that a realistic problem? No.
And Rob, Canada's not failing. There definitely have been some choices made recently without thinking them through and without planning for them. Immigration, I know that's a big issue here, and I would say I think to have the amount of the levels of immigration that Trudeau wanted, there wasn't anything in place to assist with that onslaught. So then we have problems now because we don't know what to do with people who can't find jobs and can't find housing, and it's all of us. So that was absolutely a mistake. Does that mean we failed? No.
Well, and housing is a very complex problem. And people don't understand the complexity of housing, because we don't just need houses. Building more $500,000 houses isn't going to help our housing issue, because most of the people that are really where we need it is low income and nonprofit housing. Like we need housing that people can actually afford and rents people can afford.
A lot of it is foreign investment in housing, which drives up the prices so much. And I don't know about it too much, but I know that I don't like it.
Yeah. So, do we need to do something about housing? Absolutely. But building more $500,000 plus homes isn't going to solve our problem.
Yeah.
But let's be real. There's a lot of real estate on the market. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of real estate on the market that belongs to banks that they don't even care about. I watch brand new homes basically burn to the ground. Well, not quite burn to the ground. Usually they just let their pipes explode in the cold.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, we saw what happened in the States. I mean, again, in Trump's first term, he deregulated a lot of housing policies, and he repealed, I think it was the Dodd-Frank Act. So it allowed bigger corporations, real estate companies, to buy up plots of land much quicker than individual consumers could, which made pricing of housing a lot higher, and that's what caused that. But people don't see, the Republican Party doesn't, at least the voters don't seem to understand, and yet they're constantly complaining about how they can't afford homes. But that very administration is the one who was responsible for the housing prices to go up in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So it's complicated, and a lot of the housing falls provincially. Like the federal government gives money to provinces, and it's up to them on how to spend it. And if they're spending it on boosting the higher cost home market, they're not really helping. And then you've got your municipal, like in Edmonton. I'll bring up the city center airport. We have an airport, or had an airport, right in the middle of the city. That not our international, but just one that people used within Canada, small planes, that kind of thing. And the city owned the land, and it's going to high-end, high-rise buildings is what they're going to build there. Where that would have been a really great area to have multi-tiered housing, like have a mixed housing. So just, you can't blame it all on Trudeau and the government. It's how the provinces are spending the money, how the municipalities are spending the money, and if they're really doing what they need. Because in Edmonton, I can tell you, we need more lower income housing, big time, and I doubt that's unusual. I'm sure that's all of Canada.
Absolutely.
The rents are outrageous, and we need to do something about that. But I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying that it's multi-tiered.
And I'm inclined to trust Carney when it comes to something like that. It just seems like something he could handle. I mean,
well, this is basic economics. If you're looking at the climate right now in regards to housing or anything, to see that these houses are sitting there unoccupied, it's wild. The amount of waste that's going out there.
Yeah, but I think we'll wind it down. I've gone a little over today. If that's okay. And I'm just going to do my end spiel. Just give me a moment to change my background here. So thank you all for coming today, though. I do really appreciate it. Let's take a look at our beaver politics. Just give me a second. So I'm just going to go over the next few shows real quick. Wrong icon. Sorry, I'm having a day here. So there we go. So on Saturday, tonight, we have Radicalized, hosted by The Radical at 5 p.m., 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Radical goes into the gray matter of politics and how religion is impacting the political atmosphere. On Sunday, we have A Damn Happy Life, hosted by Happy, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And Happy is looking for a deeper perspective on how people define happiness and exploring the moments of growth throughout their lives. Monday, a lot of you might be interested in Indigenous matters with Treaty 6 Birder, at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 10 Eastern. And he goes over the effects of politics on Indigenous communities and how Indigenous peoples can affect the political structure. On Tuesday, we have News Hour with Frontline Feminists, 5 p.m. to 7 Pacific, 8 to 10 Eastern. And Frontline highlights the biggest news from the weekend and news you might be missing and brings it to the forefront. On Wednesday, we have The Mossy Side, hosted by the Progressive Moose. That is 5 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 9:30 Eastern. The Messy Side of Politics, doing a deep dive into weekly topics. And on Thursday, we have The Navigation Station, hosted by the Misses. That's 1 to 2:30 Pacific, 4 to 5:30 Eastern, and that's education, resources, and solutions to help navigate the Canadian political landscape. And on Thursday evenings, we have Truth Through Discourse, which is hosted by Mrs. Radical. And that's 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 8 to 9:30 Eastern, and that's weekly discussions on relevant news topics or social issues. On Fridays, we have Polytalk, and we will be, not sure who's hosting that one yet. Nerdy's just stepped away for now. We have that from 5 to 11 Pacific, 8 to 2 a.m. Eastern. So it can go up to 6 hours, depends on who's hosting it. And those are debates. So anybody who is on the right side or conservative and wants to debate, Friday evenings are your time. Saturdays, and we're back to Saturdays and Breaking the Dam, which is discussions on mental health. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And we will be back next Saturday at noon. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.